fiscal, monetary, and regulatory intervention. Maybe they are not as effective as they have been in the past. Maybe they cannot be as large, these fiscal packages, as they've been in the past, because we saw imbalances coming in. They also have limit to what they can do. And we saw recently with a couple of instances in which they let some big companies go, that they allow some market mechanism to come in simply because they cannot backstop everything in the economy.
You also mentioned, with regards to China and the U.S., that in the future we could see some more restrictions on the flow of people when it comes to the tech war, really, between the U.S. and China. What's your view on how this unfolds? So far, tariffs have been the sort of main tool that the two sides have used, but do you think we're going to see more of restrictions on the flow of tech experts and skilled workers?
Yeah, I mean, there are non-tariff restrictions that can be introduced in the relationship between the two superpowers. The transfer of knowledge and people is clearly one of them. So far, U.S. universities have been very open in allowing all Chinese students that wanted to come in, learn, and perhaps even come back with a much higher human capital to be deployed back in their home country in China. As we go towards a sort of balkanization in global supply chains in which every superpower will have its own sphere of influence, this is going to be reduced over time. There are people even talking about splinternet, meaning internet for China, internet for the rest of the world, or at least the American side of the world, or those countries that are more closely allied to the U.S. This is a real threat. You can imagine how the world will look like if 1.5 billion of people will use one side of the internet and another side of the world will use a different one.
Something to worry about perhaps in your 2030 outlook, not necessarily a 2020 outlook. Brunello, we'll pick up the conversation in a short while. Brunello Rossa, the CEO and head of research at Rossa and Rubini. Now, some company news for you. Unilever has warned that the company will miss underlying sales growth expectations this year, citing a slowdown in South Asia. The consumer goods giant expects growth to be below its previous forecast of sales in the lower half of its 3 to 5% range. It expects the trend to continue into 2020, but the company says the earnings, margin, and cash will not be impacted.
Swiss lender UBS plans to overhaul a business arm dedicated for the ultra-wealthy, according to reports. The shakeup would aim to boost revenue in the bank's global family office unit by migrating prized clients between departments. New co-head of wealth management Iqbal Khan would signal his first major mark with this move after his controversial departure from Credit Suisse.
And moving on to pharma, Roche says it expects to complete its $4.3 billion takeover of Spark Therapeutics today after it secured approval from the U.S. regulator. The Swiss drug maker announced that over 60% of Spark's outstanding common shares have been tendered in its offer. Roche announced the deal in February as it looks to push into the treatment of rare diseases. Well, we are getting close to the end of the year, but not quite. We still got a couple of days of the Santa rally to trade. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can follow us or tweet us at StreetSign CNBC or tweet us directly, CNBC Ju and CNBC Giuliano.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now. Coming up, Brexit fears return amid reports British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will move to guarantee a 2020 exit, with or without a trade deal. Sterling's reaction ahead.
Can we just order a pizza?
Ready, done.
How'd you order so fast?
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Dear Dad, Merry Christmas. Thank you for always doing everything you could to make this time of year special for us. No one has a Christmas jumper collection quite like yours. Your festive spirit is...
Gingerbread latte with 2 shots and nutmeg whipped cream for Joe.
I hope it snows. I know how you love a white Christmas. All my love, Joe. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app and get 20% off when you buy a card and gift this Christmas. Use code Heartfelt20. Exclusions apply.
Back to throw, fires right on the slant. Caught, touchdown. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown.
This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the lights shine bright on the Las Vegas Bowl. Washington Huskies head coach Chris Peterson will coach his final game before retiring as he takes on his former school, the Boise State Broncos.
Down to the 5, he leaps for the end zone, and he is in.
To listen to this and every bowl game, just search college football today.
Welcome back to the show. Well, the pound, the sterling, is on the slide this morning. It comes amid reports the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to outlaw an extension of the EU transition period beyond 2020. That would give Mr. Johnson less than 11 months to get a comprehensive free trade deal, raising the prospect of a harder Brexit. The Prime Minister will reportedly put a revised withdrawal agreement bill before the Commons this Friday. And top Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow has said he will visit the UK in early January for wide-ranging talks, including on trade. Kudlow stressed he looks forward to working on a deal with Prime Minister Boris Johnson and aims to get negotiations started as soon as possible.
Germany, meanwhile, will hike the price for carbon dioxide emissions from 10 euros to 25 euros per ton from 2021. The move comes as Berlin looks to pass its sweeping climate reform package before Christmas. Germany is aiming to cut its emissions levels by 55% from their 1990 levels. However, its initial emissions pricing scheme was widely criticized for being too low. The new agreement will see the price continue to climb before reaching a price corridor of 55 to 65 euros per ton in 2026.
This despite pretty much a failure, collective failure at the COP25 to get to any agreement with respect to those carbon targets. Well, for more on the outlook for green fiscal policy and the Green Deal, let's get back to Brunella Rossa, the CEO and head of research at Rossa & Rubini. It seems as though the one area that politicians they have this 50 billion euro package, but is certainly more open to the idea of spending only as it pertains to sustainable investment and green. Is that your understanding as well of the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that Germany needs fiscal stimulus. A large section of the political spectrum doesn't like the Schwarze Null anymore. However, breaking that rule is complicated. Everybody wants to kill it, but nobody wants to be found with the smoking gun. One way of going around this is investing in green projects, environmentally sustainable projects, energy transition, something that can be easily sold to the general public. We could even say green is the new black.
Right.
Just
the new black zero. Yeah,
exactly. So, and also because we know that the Green Party is on the rise in Germany, might be even end up being the first party at the next general elections in 2021. In theory, might be earlier if the coalition collapses. So somehow the country is already moving in a direction in which the Greens might be entering the coalition at some point.
Right. I mean, when we talk about the European outlook for next year, people seem to be placing a lot of hope on fiscal spending, particularly out of Germany, and clearly they're moving towards a slightly more expansionary stance. But how much of a fiscal multiplier effect is that going to have for the rest of the Eurozone? I mean, even if Germany go for a 0.5% fiscal expansion, how much is that really going to affect the likes of Italy, Spain, and France?
Very little, especially if his environmental projects and construction buildings, so to speak, in Germany using German workforce and German companies. So starting to using workforce from other countries and so on becomes complicated. So, as you said, the fiscal multiplier to the rest of the Eurozone remains limited. Also because you would need a very large fiscal package in order that to be felt in the periphery of the Eurozone. There's always the hope that Germany will relax its fiscal stance. That is not going to happen unless there's a real political change. And even if the Greens were to come on board, the Greens have a kind of an interesting combination of being socially progressive but fiscally responsible, even conservative, which is what distinguishes them from the SPD, which is the reason why they will not change that position, because put them at the very center of the political spectrum. They don't want to change that. They know this is what they can bring them into the chancellery in a year or so, and so that's why they are going to keep remaining very fiscally prudent.
On the monetary policy side, we heard from Madame Lagarde last week that as part of the monetary policy review, they're going to be looking at climate change as one of the factors to consider. And it seems like it's pretty controversial. There's been a fair bit of backlash against the ECB getting more involved in coming up with measures to mitigate the impact of climate change. In your view, how involved should a central bank be in trying to combat climate change? Is this something they should really be focusing their efforts on?
I mean, this was a path, as you know, that was broken by Carney here in London, who started talking about the involvement of central banks into climate change issues and so on. The IMF even stepped into that direction with Georgieva coming in. Again, my impression is that is one of the ways for Lagarde to say, if we need to buy something new, that could be green bonds, perhaps issued by the European Investment Bank to finance some green projects. And this could be a way of keeping the QE program as large as it is, or even larger, which is the reason why the hawkish segment of the Governing Council is already shooting against this very easy target, in their opinion.
And of course, Christine Lagarde seems to be somebody who wants to try to achieve a consensus and achieve some sort of a reconciliation with the hawkish members. But you raise a very interesting point, and to Juliana's point as well, monetary policy meeting fiscal policy. How much scope do you see for coordination between the two going forward, especially when most people say, look, we're getting to the limits of what interest rates can actually achieve here?
That's the big theme of the years to come. We know that there is some form of fiscal monetary coordination going forward. Various forms of helicopter money, monetary financing, people's QE, have been discussed in policy circles, not just from the fringes, but mainstream, the likes of former central bank governors, such as Hildebrand or Fisher, Stan Fisher from the Fed, have talked about that. And we believe this is very important. We talk in our outlook of what we call helicopter put, meaning that somehow investors know that when the next downturn comes, the serious one, there's already going to be a new instrument that is going to be used to backstop the market. And by backward induction, this is what is keeping markets so excited at the moment, even fraught in some instances.
Just on helicopter money, as in literally central banks handing out checks to people?
They will find a way. In the US, it's simple. It's tax rebate, checks sent home, that is fiscal deficit directly monetized by the central bank. Easy. Equally easy in Japan to some extent. Much more complicated in Europe and in the Eurozone, we know that, which is the reason why they need to go through the investment banks, the European Investment Bank, Green Project, bonds being bought by the central bank and so on and so forth. More complicated, but doable eventually.
A pipe dream then. Brunello Rossa, thank you very much. The CEO and Head of Research at Rossa and Robbini. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk all things Chinese tech. Stay with us.
concerns about mild memory loss related to aging?
Want to step up your sparkle? Get to B&Q. Our Christmas clearance is now on. We've huge savings on lights, artificial trees, decorations, and more. So grab a bargain and get your grotto glittering. Bring the magic ho-ho home with B&Q. Selected Christmas lines only, subject to availability. See DIY.com.
Be honest, how much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention, because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
What was your favorite podcast of 2019? Well, here's ours.
This is the Open Ears Project, a new daily podcast in which people tell us a story about the piece of classical music that means the most to them.
Part mixtape, part sonic love letter. The Open Ears Project is where people share a classical track that gives a glimpse into their lives and allows us to hear the music and each other differently.
Brought to life things that I couldn't really put into words.
Search Open Ears Project on TuneIn to check it out.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
In Washington, D.C., there's only one word in everybody's mouth: impeachment. As the impeachment process moves on to the next stage, don't miss history unfolding on TuneIn. Wherever you are when the latest witness takes the stand, you can listen to every hearing live as it's happening on Capitol Hill. And between hearings, turn to stations like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News Talk for bombshells, breaking headlines, and bold analysis every step of the way. Search Impeachment News on TuneIn to hear the latest.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Welcome back to Street Signs. I'm Juliana Tattlebaum.
And I'm Joanna Bersecci, and these are your morning headlines.
Sterling is on the slide amid reports the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to outlaw an extension of the EU transition period.
The prospect of a harder Brexit weighs on British homebuilders, which are on course for their worst one-day fall since early October.
Broader European markets fall despite fresh record highs on Wall Street as the trade deal rally takes a breather, while Unilever drops to the bottom of the stock 600 after warning on sales growth.
And Boeing suppliers fall as the plane maker halts production of its 737 MAX jet in the wake of two fatal crashes after U.S. regulators dash hopes of the plane returning to the skies before 2020.
Well, we've got another data point on the UK economy to share with you now, just crossing the wires, and that is on the unemployment front. The UK jobless rate fell about 13,000. That's the number of jobless, fell about 13,000 to 1.28 million in the 3 months to October. That puts the unemployment rate at 3.8%. Polls were expecting 3.9%, so a touch below that at 3.8%. That's the level to keep an eye on for UK unemployment.
Just to add as well, the average earnings, which is a number that people watch very closely for gauge on wage growth. The weekly earnings ex bonuses came at 3.5% year on year in the 3 months to October. That is higher than the poll of 3.4%, but still the weakest since the 3 months to April 2019. October alone was up 3.2%. Still a very strong picture, I would say. 3.5% on wage growth is very, very strong, and certainly other countries will be looking at that and thinking, the employment situation in the UK continues to be one of its strong features.
And you can see there sterling on your screens down about 1% versus the dollar. Of course, the bulk of those losses are coming in reaction to a suggestion that Boris Johnson could outlaw an extension of that transition period, perhaps raising the prospect of a hard Brexit. And you've got FX traders and equity investors reacting to that news. Jemana?
Yeah, exactly. So let's just broaden this out a bit more and talk about what's been going on with sterling. 131.90 is where we're at now. You may remember that right after that exit poll came out last Thursday, we initially bounced up from around these levels to 134, touched 135 briefly intraday, and then started to come off. And this morning, we are seeing a big decline in the pound, down about 1%. This, as Juliana was just highlighting, plans and proposals from the Prime Minister to rule out another extension beyond 2020. And certainly that's sending a few jitters to the market this morning. And it raises, again, the prospect of a hard Brexit if indeed we get to that cliff edge in 2020. So investors who may have got involved in the trade in the last couple of sessions probably taking some chips off the table. So that is what we're seeing in the pound this morning. Some weakness versus the relative strength that we've had. We're also seeing some weakness in the yen and Swiss francs. So the safe haven currencies are coming off versus the US dollar. No surprise there, because we are seeing very strong performance in Asian equities. Nikkei almost at a 2-year high. So that's obviously panning out in the currency as well. And then the euro, I would say one interesting aspect of the euro the last couple of sessions has been trading very closely in sync with the pounds, because obviously the possibility of a soft Brexit for the UK is a good thing for the euro as well. And even though the pound has strengthened versus the euro, there's still a Brexit premium that is being traded in this currency pair as well. Today, 111.40, again, back to somewhat of a sideways movement. And remember, yesterday we had the PMI numbers out of Europe, somewhat disappointing, the flash prints for the month of December. So keep an eye on that and the macro space. Let's talk about European markets, though. Yesterday, the Stock 600 had a very good session, and indeed it was another very strong session for the FTSE 100. Yesterday, the UK index was up north of 2%, its strongest session since April 2018. And you can see today we're just about eking out gains in the FTSE 100 above that 7,500 mark. I've been watching it very closely, up almost a fraction, a tenth of a percentage point. We've been watching the banks very closely in the FTSE 100 today. Some of the big banks like RBS and Lloyds are actually trading on the back foot, down anything from 3 to 4%. This after the Bank of England revealed the latest stress test. Even though every single UK bank passed, there's some concern from the investment community that perhaps the capital buffer in an extreme scenario is not quite what they were looking for. So that's one of the reasons why Lloyds, for example, is trading on the back foot. DAX in Germany down about 0.4 of a percentage point. And here we're looking at some of the travel names very closely. And obviously there's linkages after Boeing announced that they will be freezing the production of the 737 jets. As suppliers in Germany and in France are getting hit this morning on the back of that story. So those are some of the negative names that we've been looking at. And then FTSE MIB up about 0.25 of a percentage point as well. The Italian index doing quite well, and I would say there the focus has been on a somewhat of a stabilization when it comes to the political outlook, but also the recent recap they did for one of the banks there. So that's something also worth bearing in mind as well. How about U.S. futures? Well, yesterday we saw yet again fresh record highs for the three majors. The Dow is up about 21% year to date, S&P about 27% higher on the year. Very, very strong year it has been for U.S. equities. Today the picture is a little bit mixed, but all eyes will be on industrial production and, as ever, what goes on with the developments on the Phase 1 trade deal. Larry Kudlow overnight saying that a Phase 1 deal is pretty much done and dusted. Let's see.
Thank you very much, Jemana. Let's talk tech now. Huawei's participation in the rollout of Germany's 5G services could be challenged today by Germany's Social Democrats. The SPD is set to discuss proposals to tighten security of telecom equipment suppliers. The measures, which were seen and reported on by Reuters, stipulated the exclusion of suppliers where, quote, manipulation or espionage cannot be ruled out. Chancellor Angela Merkel's coalition government has objected to potential sidelining of the Chinese company, reportedly prompting today's party vote. China's tech sector has seen another landmark year while facing challenges from a slowing economy and trade war uncertainty. E-commerce giant Alibaba stood out as it held one of the year's largest IPOs with its listing on the Hong Kong exchange. Our very own Arjun Karpal is making an appearance today and joins us now with more on these Chinese tech giants. Arjun.
That's right, Giuliani. Well, it's been somewhat of a mixed bag, I'd say, for the Chinese bats, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. If we kick off with Baidu, it's had somewhat of a rough year, I'd say, a bit up and down, and mainly there's a few concerns around this company. Firstly, the Chinese advertising market has been very weak, and that's weighed on a huge part of Baidu's business, which is advertising around search as well. And what you've also seen is increased competition in the search market, an area Baidu once dominated. The likes of ByteDance, the owner of the popular social media app TikTok, has jumped into the search space in China, so that's also causing a bit of worry for Baidu at the moment as well. But to counter that, they are trying to look at new avenues of growth. One of those is video streaming. They've got a service called iQIYI, which is sort of like Netflix over in China. That's seen big user growth and big revenue growth as well. It's also putting its bets on new areas, the likes of driverless cars as well. While that's not seen as a short-term play, it could be a big player in the future in this space going forward. Now let's move on to perhaps the best performer of the BAT trio, and that's Alibaba. And the reason it's done so well this year and why you've seen shares up so strongly is because its core commerce business has continued to perform well. There are a lot of concerns about the Chinese economy, a slowdown in the Chinese economy and what that might do to the Chinese consumer. But Alibaba has shown that those consumers continue to flock online. But it's not all about shopping as well. This company continues to perform well in the cloud space. Its cloud division saw revenues up 64% in the September quarter. So that's a big boost and seen as a big future area for Alibaba as well. And they continue to invest in key areas, the likes of food delivery. And there's a sense here that Alibaba is able to touch the consumer in China in many areas, the likes of payments, the likes of food delivery and online shopping as well. Let's move on to the final company in the BAT trio, and that's Tencent. It's had a bit of an up and down year. If we look at what happened in 2018, you saw actually the Chinese government freeze approval of video games. Video games is a huge area for this company. They then allowed those games to come to market. That helped Tencent this year, and you saw a recovery in that online gaming division, which has been very crucial for the company. That's promise, and going into 2020, they have a strong portfolio of games as well coming to market, which should help its gaming division. But it's not all about games as well for Tencent. They're investing in new areas, the likes of cloud computing and fintech as well, which is seen as a future growth area for the company. Now, if we just look at how the market's viewing this company, I think there's certainly a lot of optimism around Tencent, particularly with new games to come into market as well, but certainly a lot of caution as well, given the fact that the Chinese government continues to look very closely at the gaming sector, giving concerns about addiction in gaming in China. For now, guys, back to you.
Arjun, thank you for that spectacular breakdown. It's also worth bearing in mind that the tech sector in the U.S. is also up almost 50% this year, and this despite the fact that we spent the last 12 months discussing the trade war and the effects it will have on the tech sector for both U.S. and China, but lots of good names with very strong performances in 2019. Well, T.S. Lombard says tech is playing a central role in the trade talks between the U.S. and China. It characterized the Phase 1 trade deal as President Trump's Christmas present to President Xi. Chief economist Charles Dumas joins us now. Why would President Trump want to give President Xi a Christmas gift?
Well, because he wants an agreement, because that'll help him win the election in November 2020.
It's a self-serving Christmas gift at the end of the day, isn't it?
It's a gift to himself.
It's a gift, okay, a gift to himself. So reading between the lines, do you see this as a long-lasting deal? Do you see there is scope for things really settling down between the two sides? 2020 will be a year where we won't have to discuss the trade tensions as much as we did in 2019.
Well, I think that's a fair summary of 2020, yes. But when you say long-lasting, I assume you mean more than just 12 months. Our concern is that what we're looking at here is a long-term contest for primacy in the world economy and arguably geopolitics down the road. And as a result of that contest, you have to assume, therefore, that the trouble will resume after the elections next year.
I don't wish to minimize the question, but you clearly raise it as some sort of a contest between the two very large superpowers, economic powers in the world. Who will end up winning this, and what is the definition of winning that contest?
Well, I'm not sure who's going to win it, and I'm not sure that winning is something that can be achieved, because they're both major countries, and in the absence of some sort of war or conquest, one has to assume that they will continue to be massive economies for the next, let's say, 10 years. So for practical purposes, as far as the eye can see, no one's going to win. It's just that there will be this competition.
Does that mean that we're going to see, a splintering? We were talking to our previous guest, Brunello, about the concept of splinter net, and we know that the U.S. is very concerned about China's push into 5G and other industries of the future, and the national security threat that the U.S. insists it poses. So, do you think we're going to just continue to see this divergence when it comes to technology and this separation between China and the U.S.?
I wouldn't be at all surprised by continued divergence, yes. And we think that the world is going to devolve to some degree from full globalization, so to speak, that we've had for 30 years since the fall of since the end of the Cold War, to something more like regional blocks. And of course that does contain the possibility that you've just mentioned, that a splinter net, as you call it, which is a clever phrase. It obviously will be suboptimal.
We just heard there from Arjun, our tech correspondent. He's based in South China and covers these Chinese tech giants very closely. And a lot of them have been, refocusing their efforts not just on the domestic market in China, but in Southeast Asia and expanding beyond the Chinese market. So, it's not just about the U.S. and China competing within their own home markets, but grabbing those opportunities outside of those. So, how do you see that unfolding? That's sort of, I guess, a derivative of the U.S.-China trade war.
Well, this is one aspect of the thing which I think to some degree threatens the stock market, actually, in terms of PE ratios in the long run. And that is that, in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, you have countries which regard themselves as part of the US geopolitical system and probably defense system too. And yet they will be increasingly, for all the reasons you just stated, part of the Chinese economic bloc. And that is, that implies bad news or difficulties for them, tension, if you like.
So certainly collateral damage as the story continues to unfold over the medium term. Charles Dumas will pick up the conversation next chat. Charles Dumas, the chief economist at TS Lombard. Well, we've discussed plenty of different topics today, but if you want to talk about the trade war or how you see the relationship between U.S.-China evolving, you can tweet us at StreetScience or just tweet us directly. I'm at CNBC Ju, and Juliana is at CNBC Juliana. Also coming up in just a few moments, though, a historic vote. Members of Congress could move Trump's impeachment trial to the Senate tomorrow. More from Washington in just a few moments.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1.
Today, your information is more exposed than ever. When you shop, sign in, or browse, you could be vulnerable to cybercriminals. More online threats demand more protection. That's why new Norton 360 provides multiple layers of protection, combining device security, secure VPN, password manager, and cloud backup all in one solution. Get new Norton 360, starting at $24.99 for the first year.
Be honest, how much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention, because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
Welcome back to Street Science. Well, we've got some fresh commentary from Fitch Ratings and also an economic adjustment in terms of their forecast for China. Fitch has come out saying they now expect China's economy to grow by close to 6% in 2020 compared with their earlier forecast of 5.7%. So an upgrade to their economic forecast there. Growth in China's economy is expected to support the outlook for the global economy, helping world GDP growth to stabilize in 2020. They say that China's domestic demand trends may further complicate efforts to raise imports from the U.S. And the underlying strategic tensions will remain between the U.S. and China, particularly in fields such as technology, which we've been discussing all morning, which will pose major obstacles to full resolution of the trade war. So this is fresh comments from Fitch with regards to China. U.S.-China trade tensions eased but not resolved. That's the message from Fitch Ratings.
And growth landing around 6%, close to 6%, which is for the most part where a lot of analysts see growth for 2020 in China as well. All right, let's take a look at how U.S. fixed income is trading. Switching to the other side of the equation, that is the U.S. 10-year notes we have rallying today to the tune of about 2.5 basis points at 186. Remember, after the very strong employment report almost 2 weeks ago, we reached 195. So we have rallied back, and this even after the Fed signaled a pause last week. Let's get back to TS Lombard, and they are saying that the U.S. election could trigger a bear market, which could in turn spark a recession. The chief economist, Charles Dumas, is still with us. Let's tie in this talk of recession to what's been going on with the yield curve, because for a good part of this year, the yield curve was inverted. People were terrified that a recession was imminent. And of course, the Fed went on to cut 3 times, and everything's great again. The curve is back in positive territory. No one's talking about a recession.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been saying all along that we expect 2022 to be a recovery year, and that 2019 was a downswing year. And the point here is that the very weak performance in continental Europe and Japan has meant that they've gone to negative yields, and as a result, people have massively switched into the US 10-year and took the yield down from nearly 3.25% just over a year ago to, in the space of 9 months, to under 150. And now we're back to 186, I think you said.
Do you think this experience has taught us that the yield curve is perhaps not as reliable an indicator today as it was in the past, given just how much the prevalence of negative rates?
It wasn't in the past. In early 2005, you had an inverted curve, and in 1998, you had an inverted curve, both of them because of huge rallies in the long bond. And when there are huge rallies in the long bond, it's usually because of something happening abroad, and both of those were. It was the savings glut in 2005, and it was the LTCM and the Russian default in 1998. So neither of those were forecasting recession. What really forecasts recession is when the yield curve gets inverted because of the short end going up in yield. In other words, because the Fed is doing a whole lot, often too much too late.
All right, Charles, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Charles Dumas, the chief economist at TS Lombard. Now, the U.S. House of Representatives is likely to vote on the 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump tomorrow. The vote is widely expected to pass in the Democrat-controlled House, marking only the 3rd time in history a U.S. president has been impeached. In the lead up to the vote, Democrats in swing seats have committed to voting in favor of the articles, a significant move of support from the party's most politically vulnerable members. Our NBC colleague Tracy Potts joins us live from Washington, D.C. And Tracy, can you just spell out in a little bit more detail for us exactly what those two articles of impeachment are?
Sure. They are abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The evidence and the rationale behind the abuse of power article is that President Trump exchanged aid from the United States for an investigation that he was pushing for of Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who was connected to a Ukrainian company, and that he froze the aid until Ukraine agreed to announce that investigation. Now, the announcement never happened, but Democratic investigators argue because he withheld the aid for a political favor, it still amounts to what they believe are high crimes and misdemeanors required for impeachment. The second is obstruction of Congress, because once they started investigating, President Trump and the White House blocked current and former White House officials from testifying, from turning over information, even when under subpoena. And for that reason, he's been charged with obstruction of Congress. In other words, they couldn't do their investigation because he couldn't cooperate. The president's defense to this is that the solution here is not to impeach him, but to go to the courts. And in fact, some of those cases of people who were subpoenaed are in the courts. Democrats argue that this is a matter of national security. The courts work too slowly and no new evidence will come out in court, and they believe they have the evidence to impeach the president. So that debate, that final debate and vote is expected to happen tomorrow.
I know, Tracy, yesterday when you very kindly gave us an update on proceedings, we had a guest in studio who said, you know, the markets are going to remain immune to these impeachment proceedings unless there is a surprise result. What would you categorize as a surprise at this point in terms of what the investment community and political watchers are expecting?
Yeah, I heard that interview yesterday, and actually I was thinking about it while we were talking. You know, the markets tend to react to things that are unusual, as you said, a surprise result. If we know what the result is, the markets are unlikely to react to that. A surprise result here would be if the democratically controlled House cannot impeach the president on one or both of these articles. They have the numbers. They have the majority. They have a few people who have decided quite publicly not to support, but they still have the numbers to make this happen. So a surprise would be the president doesn't get impeached at all. What does that say about the power of the Democratic Party? Another big surprise would be if he is actually found guilty of these crimes in a Senate trial and removed from office. Because the Senate is controlled by Republicans, they are actually coordinating the trial with the White House. It's not expected that he's going to be removed from office. So if for some reason 20 Republicans change their minds, that would be a really huge story.
Certainly something to watch out for from a surprise standpoint. Tracy, as ever, thank you very much for breaking it down. Let's get back to Charles Dumas, the chief economist at TS Lombard. Next year is a very big year in the U.S. from a political standpoint. In the run-up to November, how do you think that that's going to overall impact fiscal and potentially monetary policy? Because obviously, you know, one of the first things President Trump did when he came to power was enact this massive fiscal stimulus. Do you see scope for that happening in 2020 as well to favor himself with the electorate?
I don't think so, no. Our view is that you've got slightly below trend growth, by which I mean below 2% growth in the fourth quarter that we're in the middle of, or towards the end of now, and probably in the first quarter, largely because of inventory overhang. But that if you look at consumer spending and housing, they should carry the economy through and take us back to on-trend or possibly slightly above trend growth through the 2020 quarters. So I wouldn't think that the economy is going to need a stimulus.
So you don't think we're going to see much of a capex rebound before November 2020?
Not much before 2020, no. The capex, I mean, it takes a while to gear up, but I think that capex will be coming on by the end of the year because it's always a late cycle phenomenon, and it's a response to shortages of labor, for example, or bottlenecks in general. And we could easily have some of those developing by the middle to late next year.
All right, Charles, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us today. Charles Dumas, the chief economist at TS Lombard. A quick look at how U.S. futures are faring up today. The record closes yesterday for Wall Street. The picture is a bit mixed this morning, but on the year, the Dow is up 21%, S&P up 27%. Very strong year. That is it for today's show, and also our last show together for the year. We'll see you, back in January, Juliana?
Look forward to 2020. I'm Juliana Tattlebaum, and this is Shimano, of course, at Worldwide Exchange up next.
The hottest new razor is taking the men's grooming world by storm. And if you don't have it, you need it.
Want to step up your sparkle? Get to B&Q. Our Christmas clearance is now on. We've huge savings on lights, artificial trees, decorations, and more. So grab a bargain and get your grotto glittering. Bring the magic ho-ho home with B&Q. Selected Christmas lines only, subject to availability. See DIY.com.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
It was 1970, and a pregnant Air Force captain found herself in a bind.
If you're pregnant, you cannot be active duty. If you have a child, you cannot be active duty.
So she sued. This week on The Media examines the case that almost set the course for women's reproductive rights. Instead, to Justice Ginsburg's dismay, we got Roe v. Wade. On this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Smart Sports Wagering Talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brett Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
5. Going for 5. Stocks trying to add to yesterday's record-making gains as the trade deal hopes fuel the buying for stocks. MAX suspension. Boeing confirms reports it plans to suspend production of its grounded 737 MAX jet in January. The stock trending lower again this morning. From impeachment to the budget to NAFTA 2.0, get ready for a big week in Washington, D.C. Former CBO Director Douglas Holtz-Aiken helps us break it all down. And Room to Run, our special series, continues this morning with a closer look at one sector up more than 300% decade to date. Plus, how the chicken wars are shaping up. They're reaching new heights. All of that as Worldwide Exchange begins right now. you. I'm Dominic Chu in for Brian Sullivan today. It is Tuesday, December 17th, 2019. Congratulations, first off, to the New Orleans Saints and their quarterback, Drew Brees, because last night he became the NFL's all-time touchdown king, breaking Peyton Manning's all-time record with 540 touchdown passes. He threw 4 of them just last night. We'll have more in scores and more. That's coming up. But first off, Wall Street tried to extend a record win streak of its own as stock futures, or at least right now, point to some major minor losses at this stage here. The Dow Jones down by about 13 points, the S&P up by about 2 points, the Nasdaq up by 11. That's the implied open if these futures moves hold into the opening bell for regular cash equities trading. Now, let's take a look at the bond market, because we are seeing a slight move in yields, not a whole bunch, but still a slight tick lower. The 10-year note yield 1.861%, the last trade there. 2-year benchmark Treasury note yields 1.631%. So that's how the Treasury shape is moving right now. Let us go worldwide. In Asia, we did see a little bit of a positivity trade there. The Nikkei in Japan up 0.5%. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong, again, up over 1%, as was the Shanghai Composite overall. You can see there now in Europe, that trade is perhaps giving a little bit of it back. Remember, a huge move yesterday for many of the major bourses out there. The German DAX currently off 0.5%, and the FTSE 100 just about flat after big moves yesterday on the heels of that Brexit vote from last week. Let's get a look at some of the other top stories we're following and send it over to Rahel Solomon with those. Good morning, Rahel.
Hi, Dom. Good morning. So let's start with Boeing. Company saying that it's suspending production of its best-selling 737 MAX jetliner starting in January, and what will be the company's biggest assembly line halt in more than 20 years. Boeing says it will not lay off any of the roughly 12,000 employees at the company's plant in Seattle during the production freeze, at least for now. Taking a look at Boeing shares, they are edging lower this morning, about 1.2% there, and they're also down more than 13% since the global grounding of the MAX back in March. But this morning, though, it's the company's European suppliers that are really feeling the burn. The board of Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot are reportedly meeting separately today to discuss finalizing an initial agreement over the $50 billion planned merger that would create the world's 4th largest automaker. The companies had said that they would look to seal the deal by the year's end, and this would put brands like Fiat, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Maserati, and Alfa Romeo brands all under one roof. And the British pound extending losses this morning on reports that UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will use his new parliamentary majority to push through a revised Brexit bill later this week that would guarantee that the country will fully exit the EU by the end of 2020 with or without a deal. That would give the UK about 11 months to negotiate a deal with Brussels during what's being called the transition period. So, Dom, you remember that period in time? I think it was for a few months where every day we were getting Brexit headlines. It was like, this was happening, then that was happening,
it's
then this was happening.
It's still
but
happening.
Not nearly with the frequency of that period. That looks like it's coming back.
I mean, and by the way, that the whole idea that you could have a massive auto deal coming together. And one of the biggest hurdles there was the French government, which is a big stakeholder in Peugeot. And now they're saying this is a go-ahead for these guys. The pound is interesting here only because, as we highlighted here, a move lower by 1% is no small feat in currency markets. But there was a huge run-up after those election wins. But the idea here is that there would have been an idea for a softer Brexit, perhaps a negotiated exit. Conservatives there. But now hardliners might be able to maybe push through their agenda as well. Who knows?
We'll see.
All right. Thank you, Rahel Solomon, for those. Well, back home, U.S. stocks looking to extend their record run despite uncertainty about trade, Brexit, and what's set to be a very busy week in our nation's capital. Joining me now is Mark Avalone, president at Potomac Wealth Advisors. Mark, Rahel just brought up so many different points here. Brexit, we have all things going on with mergers and acquisitions, cross-border. There are many cross-currents in the market right now, yet the Euro Stoxx 600 hit a record high. The S&P 500 hit a record high. Is this just a situation where nothing can take down the markets?
Well, I think a lot of the worry from those factors never materialized. You see that the Brexit, the pro-Brexit party passed and won the election, and the the London market responded favorably. And if anything, the weaker pound is going to continue to boost that economy. So a lot of the worries there proved to be for naught, at least until now. And back home, the trade news turned out to be a double winner with USMCA and at least the verbal agreement for a phase one. So a lot of times what happens is the worries in the market don't materialize. And meanwhile, the U.S. economy and the underlying economic strength continues to be strong. And that is the real story. And that's what won out. The strong U.S. economy, the strong U.S. consumer, and looking into 2020, upward earnings and GDP perhaps on the rise as well.
All right, but stocks do not go up in a straight line. And it's not to say that 2019 has been a straight line, but after a really rough and tumble 2018 fourth quarter, you can maybe see why markets would want to kind of recover the way that they did given the economic data. But we are now reaching levels where valuations are a concern, are they not?
Absolutely, absolutely the case. And we've talked about that on this program. I think valuations matter. I think Wall Street is not a one-way street, and investors and enthusiasms are a little getting ahead of themselves. Forward valuations near that point, over 18, where typically the next few years of investing aren't as ripe as what's just occurred. So I think investors need to stay invested in stocks. The story, the underlying economics are just too strong, but I think they need to be selective. I think the entry points can matter here. I think looking to buy in on some pullbacks could make better sense. But yes, I think investors need to temper their enthusiasm at these lofty levels.
All right, so you said selective. What are you selecting right now, and what are you staying away from?
Well, I think what we want to look at is what hasn't run up and where some valuation might be working to our favor. I think if you look in the small cap space, especially in small cap value, you'll see market multiples actually below or below historical averages. And I think you could see some opportunity in the small cap space. Banks dominate small cap value, and they've pulled back because of this flat yield curve and intense pressure on margins, which is really deposit pressure at this point from internet banks, from being overbanked. And I think you can see an M&A rally in banks that could drive that sector. You saw it in the larger cap sector with SunTrust and BB&T merging. I think you could see it more in the mid cap space as well. There's going to be a fierce competition for deposits, and really the best way for banks to deal with that is by improving technology, gaining scale, and joining forces to reboost their margins, which have come under heavy pressure in this flat yield environment.
All right, Mark Avalone with that focus on financials. Thank you very much for those thoughts.
Good to be here.
All right. When we come back on the show, fleshing out the phase one trade deal. We are live in Beijing with the latest there. Plus, changes at the top for one major streaming player that has that stock lower in the pre-market. And then later on, from impeachment to the budget, investors getting ready for a very busy week in Washington, D.C. Former CBO Director Douglas Holtaken is here to break it all down for us. A very busy hour still ahead when Worldwide Exchange returns after this.
Your skin has different needs at night.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
Take 26.
Enjoy Oyster Bay Sauvignon, 12 bottles of Budweiser, Taylor's Select Reserve Port, and many, many more for just £7 each.
I know it's Christmas, but you're getting overexcited again.
Our latest deal. Co-op. It's what we do. Offer subject to availability until stocks last on selected lines. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 3rd of January. Please drink responsibly.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention, because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
There it is, a shot of the Windy City, Chicago, where it's 4:11, coming up on almost 4:12 Central Time. Gorgeous shot there. It's cold over there. We hope the folks out there wore the weather out. We're getting it right here in New York right now. Well, the White House is doubling down on its so-called Phase 1 trade deal with China. Top economic advisor Larry Kudlow saying the deal has been, quote, absolutely completed, despite limited public details and the fact that it will not be signed until the new year. Let's get now to our Eunice Yoon live in Beijing with the latest developments there. Good morning, Eunice, or good evening to you.
Good morning. Thanks so much, Don. Well, new reports have emerged that seem to suggest that China is looking for ways to make it easier for companies here to buy more American products and potentially to have Beijing make good on its end of the bargain when it comes to the deal. China is reportedly looking to grant more tariff waivers more frequently right after the Phase 1 trade agreement is implemented. Up till now, waivers have been provided in tranches, most recently on December 6th, to supplement strained domestic supplies of soybeans and pork. And this new move would help out importers who are still struggling with hefty tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. For example, U.S. chicken is taxed 35%. And the Trump administration says that China could potentially and is supposed to buy as much as $40, maybe $50 billion of agricultural products every year starting next year. And so this move is just seen as a way, Dom, to make it a little bit easier for Beijing to reach that goal.
All right, so let's talk about those goals then. Is this a scenario right now where these could be foundational to what's happening with the Phase 2 trade deal? I mention it only because there's been talk about what happens now with Phase 2. Does this now mean that with all of these pieces in place, that next round of talks can continue, and what could they possibly entail?
I think it's still very unclear because at this point, we don't know whether or not the Phase 1 is going to be signed. From what Robert Lighthizer has said, he thinks that this Phase 1 deal should be signed by early January. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it would make it easier for China anyway to be able to reach some of its goals when it comes to agricultural purchases if it does allow for these exemptions.
All right, a lot still left to be determined with regard to those agricultural purchases. Eunice Yoon live in Beijing with the latest on trade. Thank you very much. Well, still on deck for the show, shares of Unilever sinking sharply this morning. You can see there. Find out why coming up next. Plus, why it's Christmas coming early for Mariah Carey. That's trending, and it's coming up when Worldwide Exchange returns after this.
Today's big number, 29. That's how many record closes the S&P 500 had this year. Stocks are on pace for their largest yearly gain since 2013.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your...
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
The Honda Jazz, the car that feels fabulously small on the outside, yet deceptively big on the inside, with its incredible storage solutions and magic folding seats. Not to mention the suite of advanced safety features. And now with the small but big Jazz event, it's available with 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing until January 31st. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
Back to throw, fires right on the slant. Caught, touchdown. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown.
This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the lights shine bright on the Las Vegas Bowl. Washington Huskies head coach Chris Peterson will coach his final game before retiring as he takes on his former school, the Boise State Broncos.
Down to the 5, he leaps for the end zone, and he is in.
To listen to this and every bowl game, just search college football today.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
To the sideline, the man fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the right
block. Search NBA today to start listening.
Welcome back. Let's get a check on some of the big stocks on the move this morning. Shares of Roku are lower after the company announced Chief Financial Officer Steve Loudon plans to step down. He joined the streaming devices maker in 2015 and plans to help hire his replacement and assist with the transition period. Roku stock is up more than 300% so far this year, but you can see they're down 3% this morning. Now, Unilever is cutting its sales growth forecast for full year 2020. The consumer products giant blaming a slowdown in South Asia and weakness in North America. Growth in developed economies has been a drag for Unilever for several quarters now, where consumers are opting for fresher foods, specialty brands, or are cutting back on spending. But an interesting story there, a big read on the consumer overall. They make everything from Dove soap to Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Those shares off 5% in that trade. And then we're going to end here with Pfizer. The FDA has approved its drug Xtandi for expanded use in the treatment of hormone-sensitive prostate cancer. Pfizer says the drug, in combination with anti-hormone therapies, reduce the risk of cancer spreading or deaths by more than 60% in men with that disease. So those shares up 1% in the pre-market trade. Straight ahead on the show, bad blood between FedEx and Amazon, putting investors on edge and on notice, plus new scrutiny for Purdue Pharma over billions of dollars in money transfers from the business to the Sackler family. Those details when Worldwide Exchange returns after this.
Most people think of Verizon as a reliable...
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing. What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention, because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents age 18 plus. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Cutting for the end. Scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
All right, that's a live shot of New York City right now, 5:21 a.m. Eastern Time. You can see there a shot of Rockefeller Center and that ice rink. It is cold and slushy out there in New York. Let's get a check on this morning's other top headlines. We're going to head right out to 30 Rock. NBC's Francis Rivera live in the New York newsroom with the latest. Good morning, Francis.
Hey, Dom, good morning to you. Yeah, it's a mess out there. You got multiple tornadoes ripping across the deep south. They've been blamed for at least 3 deaths in Louisiana and Alabama. Fortunately, all of the students who go to this school were safely evacuated before the building was destroyed. The storm also ripped down power lines and also toppled trees. Meanwhile, a winter blast of snow and ice are making roads treacherous for millions. Police in Indiana say a mother and her son were killed when their car spun into the path of a truck. The former deputy campaign manager for Donald Trump is due in court for sentencing today. Last year, Rick Gates pleaded guilty to lying to federal prosecutors and cooperated extensively with special counsel Robert Mueller in the Russia probe. He was a close associate with former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who was serving a 7.5-year sentence in federal prison. Because of Gates' cooperation, federal prosecutors say they are not opposed to probation instead of jail time. A group of friends dining at an IHOP in New Jersey left their server with a generous $1,200 tip for the holidays. The waitress was so shocked she thought it was a mistake and tried to give the money back, but it is hers to keep. This seems to be happening more and more. It's kind of a thing. Everybody pitches in $100 and make their server's day. Dom, we send it back to you.
I love these stories, especially during the holiday season. Francis, thank you very much for at least brightening up part of our days here. Thank you very much, Francis. We'll still hit on the show how Boeing's first assembly line freeze in some 20 years could send ripple effects across the entire U.S. economy. Plus, former CBO director Douglas Holtz-Aiken on what's set to be a very busy week in Washington, D.C. All of that after the break here.
Do you have concerns about Christmas? A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms. Psst. We've got something to tell you about the Honda Jazz. We know it looks small, but inside, it's really big. That's why we've created the small but big Jazz event, where you can get 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing on all grades until the 31st of January. The Honda Jazz, the small car with the big offer. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Witch Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
The extraordinary sale is now on at Bicester Village, with up to 60% off the recommended retail price at participating boutiques until the 24th of December. Enjoy luxury for less at Emma Bridgewater, The White Company, Molton Brown, The Creuset, and many more. With free parking, all-day festive dining, and restaurants open late, it's the perfect time to do your Christmas shopping. The extraordinary sale at Bicester Village.
Hello, I'm Jo Brand. When I see people homeless over Christmas, I find it really upsetting. Whether they're sleeping in doorways, on buses, or in hostels, it just shouldn't be happening. But it doesn't have to be like this. This Christmas, crisis centres across Britain are providing warmth and safety, plus long-term support to find people a job and a home. Please reserve a place for someone at Crisis this Christmas for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk now. Thank you.
Stocks fighting for gains this morning after hitting new record highs, with fresh Brexit concerns giving some investors pause. Boeing officially suspending production of its 737 MAX jet. Our own Phil LeBeau has the latest on what it means for the plane maker's future and the plane itself. And our week-long series, Room to Run, continues. We're looking at the tech sector's decade of dominance and whether anything can slow it down. All of this as Worldwide Exchange rolls on. As for all you Bryan Adams fans out there, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us on CNBC. I'm Dominic Chu in for Brian Sullivan. So here's how stock futures are looking as we are halfway through the 5 a.m. Eastern Time hour. Futures are pointing right now to some very marginal and modest losses after record highs set yesterday. If these futures moves hold into the opening bell for cash equities trading, the Dow would open down by just a paltry 14 points. The S&P would actually rise by about 1 to 2 points, and the NASDAQ would rise by about 10 points. Now, as we take a look at the bond picture, we are also seeing a slight tick lower in yields across many parts of the yield curve. The 10-year benchmark U.S. Treasury note yield currently 1.866%. The 2-year benchmark Treasury note yield, you can see there, 1.633%. Let's check on the Asian markets right now. General positivity there. Japan, Hong Kong, Shanghai. We're seeing green across the screen. The Shanghai Composite and Hang Seng in Hong Kong both up by over 1%. Let's also check out what's happening right now with the early trade in Europe. We're seeing a bit of a pullback there after some massive surges yesterday in certain key bourses there. Right now, the German DAX off by more than 0.5%. The CAC in France off by about 1/3%. And the FTSE 100 in the UK just about 0.1% decline. Remember, a big surge there yesterday for the FTSE 100. Let's get a look at some of the other top stories we are following. A federal judge in California has handed Uber a legal victory, refusing to force the company to reclassify drivers in that state as employees. But the judge also refused to throw out the case entirely, potentially allowing the fight to continue into the new year. Uber has declined to comment on that particular ruling. Those shares up 0.5% pre-market. FedEx is out with earnings after the closing bell today. The numbers come after Amazon revealed it's blocking third-party sellers on its platform from using FedEx's ground delivery shipping service. FedEx shares were down 1% in extended trading following that news. They're off about that, just about there in the pre-market trade. And new documents reveal the owners of Purdue Pharmaceuticals began taking more money out of the company as scrutiny for its role in the opioid crisis began to intensify. An audit filing shows Purdue made nearly $11 billion in payments between 2008 and 2017, benefiting members of the Sackler family who own and control the company. The figures will likely raise new questions about how much the family should pay itself to resolve lawsuits seeking to hold Purdue Pharma responsible for the opioid crisis. Well, lawmakers in the House are gearing up for the historic vote on the 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump. As you can see there, a live shot of Washington, D.C. CNBC's Ilan Mui joins us now from Washington. Ilan, can we lay out what the next few days will look like on Capitol Hill?
Well, Dom, the process of voting on the articles of impeachment will begin today with the House Rules Committee meeting at 11 a.m. They're going to set the parameters for debate on the House floor. Now, we do expect to hear from Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler and Intel Chairman Adam Schiff during that meeting. They'll also have to answer questions from members about the articles and the process. So expect that debate to go on for many hours. However, we know the outcome of the final vote on the floor is basically all but certain. President Trump will likely be impeached. So here on Capitol Hill, a lot of the focus has shifted over to the Senate. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is now demanding to hear from witnesses during a trial, including hearing from White House Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
So in the coming weeks, senators, particularly Republican senators, will have a choice. Do they want a fair, honest trial that examines all the facts? Or do they want a trial that doesn't let the facts come out? Trials have witnesses. That's what trials are all about.
The Schumer and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell are supposed to meet today to begin negotiating over what that trial will look like. Dom, the only real clue that McConnell has divulged so far is that it'll start in January around the college football bowl games. Perhaps you are more of a sports fan than I am and can read more into those tea leaves.
I'm not sure I'm more of a sports fan. I know that you are, but I mean, your New Orleans Saints just did a bang-up job last night. We'll get to that later on. But first of all, let's stick to business for just 1 second, Ilan. Impeachment is just one of the major themes dominating the conversation in Washington this week. We've got a budget battle, a vote on the USMCA also on deck. So take us through exactly how that calendar plays out throughout the course of this week heading into Christmas.
Yeah, there are really a bunch of important votes that will be happening this week, and the impeachment vote is bookended by two highly bipartisan votes on Capitol Hill. So what we're going to see today is lawmakers voting on two bills that would fund the government for the rest of the fiscal year. There's $49 billion in more spending that is set to be on deck for this fiscal year, and that's something that's really important because that means that lawmakers were able to come together and really just do the basics of governing and get that job done. No more stopgap funding measures, no more threat of shutdown. They'll be able, once these bills pass, to fully fund the government. On the flip side of the impeachment vote, at the end of the week, we are expecting to see a vote on the USMCA, and that is one of the legislative victories that really both parties want to be able to go home to their constituents over the holiday recess and talk up to show that they can still get things done in Washington, even amongst this very partisan political divide.
All right, Ilan, a lot of stuff going on in Washington, D.C. this week. Thank you very much for all of those updates on what's happening with the calendar. For more on what's set to be a high-stakes week in Washington, I'm now joined by American Action Forum president and former CBO director under George W. Bush, Douglas Holtake. And Doug, I thank you so much for being with us this morning. You just heard Ilan's report. I mean, this is a big week. Let's take us through what the ramifications are, given the idea that there are funding issues still up for debate right now. Can we count on that bipartisanship to keep everything going from the day-to-day governance perspective of America?
Well, I think she laid out the timeline pretty clearly, and it begins today with a vote in the House on these two spending bills. I spent yesterday waiting for it to fall apart, quite frankly. We've seen this movie many, many times where they say, oh, we've got a deal, but you don't really have a deal until you've got a bill to vote on. They did that late last night. It has all sorts of things in it, Tom. I mean, you've got the spending, yes, but you also have 7 years of authorization for the Ex-Im Bank, terrorism risk insurance, repeal of every tax in the ACA, health insurance tax, Cadillac tax, medical device tax. The list goes on. And so I think the good news scenario is they take care of business, they fund the government, gets voted on in the House today, gets to the Senate, gets done on Thursday probably, and we don't see a shutdown. We don't see any of the sort of tremors that go through the market that come from things going on in Washington. The bad news scenario is people finally get a chance to read it. Something's in there that they don't like, and you start to see the kind of pushback against voting on the bill, and we've seen both of these scenarios before, so I'm still watching this pretty carefully.
All right, so let's talk about the trade agreement. Let's talk about USMCA first, because that's sure. Kind of, we have details around it. We're pretty much we're in the red zone, so to speak, for this particular move here. Is this going to be something that all of the members of this free trade agreement pact, Canada, the U.S., Mexico, can all get behind? We've heard reports that Mexico may not like the language, Will this be a boom for the economy if we can get NAFTA 2.0 passed?
I think this looks a lot like the phase one trade deal with China, which is addition by subtraction. You take off the table the potential that somehow the important North American market gets divided. That would be incredibly unhelpful for all the economies. You get USMCA in place. It has some sectors where there's going to be clear benefits. I think digital trade, things like that in this agreement are quite strong. There are other places where I think people are less happy, but that's the nature of big deals. Not everyone's going to be happy. The issue with Mexico is on, the inspection of labor conditions. That's something that'll have to be worked out. Whether it's done by altering the USMCA or by a side agreement, Mexico passing legislation, I don't know. But I think that's something that's manageable. The vote should go forward on Thursday and pass, and then it's over to the Senate in early January.
So one of the other things I want to bring up here, and it's maybe not as much to do with trade specifically, but you've been following the developments with Boeing and the 737 MAX jet.
Yeah.
We're now hearing some estimates out there that are floating around the street that the suspension of production of the 737 MAX jet will actually have a market effect on U.S. economic growth. GDP could take a hit. Take us through what exactly that means and how exactly that bears out for the fiscal situation in this country.
Well, certainly it's already had an impact on GDP growth. I mean, this is an important sector of the economy. If you're looking for evidence of, sort of business investment, building planes is a big part of that. So we've already seen some couple of tenths of percentage point cut in growth. Now with a stop completely, you're going to see that in the first quarter data. There's no question about it. It feeds back into the pace of income growth and the household sector, which has been the strength of the U.S. economy. So that's worth watching closely to see that feedback. And certainly everybody needs to understand this impact and understand that it comes from a relatively anomalous source. It's not evidence that the economy is downshifting. It's a very unique event. Has a lot more to do with making international regulators simultaneously happy about the changes to the MAX than anything else. And that's proving to be a big problem for the company.
All right. Before we let you go, given everything that you've talked about right now, can you just give us in a few moments the grade that you would give the U.S. fiscal situation right now, given everything that we know about Boeing, about the economy, about markets, and about trade?
I think if you want to grade the economy, it gets a good solid B, maybe a B+. It's really hung in there remarkably well. If you want to grade the budget outlook and the fiscal situation, you get a gentleman's D at best. I mean, we have big problems that are not being dealt with. They're getting past the short-term issues, keeping the government open. They're not dealing with the long-term issue of ever-rising debt.
All right, will you please come back and talk about that some more the next time you're out here?
Happy to do it.
All right, thanks, Douglas Holtz-Ake, and sticking around for sticking with us this morning on that whole development with the U.S. economy, trade, and everything else. Thank you very much, Doug. Well, sticking with that Boeing story and the latest developments there, CNBC's Phil LeBeau joins us now. And Phil, we kind of talked a little bit about this with Doug. Lay out what this decision means, the suspension of production, and what it means for that plane and the entire supply chain moving forward.
Probably several months of uncertainty more than anything else. And that's mainly for the suppliers. I think Boeing knows with certainty what it's going to do to a certain extent, let's say through March. And although we don't know how long the suspension of production will last, here's what we do know. It's going to stop in January. There will be no layoffs. There are approximately 12,000 workers at the plant in Renton, Washington. They will continue to be paid. Some will be shifted over to production in Everett, Washington, or at other Boeing facilities. There will be some work for some of those people, clearly not building 737 MAXs, but more importantly for them, they will continue to be paid. And then finally, the whole focus here is to clear out the inventory. They've got about 400 of these 737 MAXs that have been built that are sitting on tarmacs in the Pacific Northwest, a few of them down in San Antonio. So they want to start clearing this out. They don't want to continue to build these and have them sitting there. As a result, don't be surprised if this production halt, which many thought might last 45 to 60 days, might last a little bit longer than that. They don't want to just fire up the plant again and then start building these out because it's going to take a while to deliver those planes, especially with the FAA determining it will put airworthiness certificates on each of those planes. It won't be designated to a Boeing representative. When you look at their monthly production, it was at 42 per month. Remember, they brought it down from 52 per month. They originally said they were going to build 57 per month in 2019. That's not going to happen. 57 per month, not going to happen in 2020. may happen in 2021. So they've got a long ways to go before they catch up with their original plan. Take a look at Boeing shares, and I'm going back to November 11th. I think that's what we have. Well, now we got back to November 5th. But remember, November 11th is when they put out the guidance that they were going to be having the certification in 2019. Clearly, that's not going to happen. When we talked with the head of the FAA last week, he said, no, it's not happening, and it may not happen here until sometime in the first quarter. Look at the shares now, $3.21 a share. Also want to take a look at Spirit AeroSystems and GE. Two of the biggest suppliers here. Spirit AeroSystems out of Wichita. They make the fuselages. Generally speaking, the stock is traded relatively in tandem with Boeing. They haven't decided exactly what they're going to do with their production. And then for GE, they make the engines as part of a joint venture with Safran out of France. That is, to a lesser extent, impacted because GE being the conglomerate, there are a lot of other businesses there, but you certainly see the impact as well.
All right, so Phil, let's turn our eyes towards the other side of the Atlantic. You brought up Safran and its collaboration with GE. I think of Airbus when I think of European aerospace and consortium details there. Let's talk about the competitive dynamic. Has Airbus benefited from this development with the Boeing 737 MAX jet? We've heard some major U.S. carriers also now going with Boeing Airbus A320, 321 models, but we've heard Airbus executives over the course of the past, and you interviewed them, saying that this is not good for the aerospace industry overall. So what is it?
Well, it's not a benefit in terms of somebody who was scheduled to get a 737 MAX who says, that's it, I don't want it, I'm going over and I'm going to buy an A320 and I'll get it at the same time. You can't do that. You just can't jump in line. You're at the end of the line, and there's already several years, and we're talking a 7-8 year wait for a new A321. So what you do see, however, while you don't see an immediate benefit, what you do see, take a look at the A321 XLR. That is the newest plane that Airbus has introduced. Introduced it in June, and it's for longer routes, maybe connecting parts of the U.S. with smaller designations or routes, destinations in Europe. United, within the last 2 weeks said, we want 50 of the A321 XLRs. There's nothing that Boeing has to offer that is a direct competitor to that. They were supposed to introduce a plane, but they haven't because they're focused on the 737 MAX. That's the benefit that you notice for Airbus.
It's a huge story across with possibly huge ramifications for the overall economy in the United States overall. Phil LeBeau, thank you very much for the latest on Boeing and those developments on the 737 MAX jet. Well, coming up on the show, the chicken sandwich wars are back on as Popeyes makes its latest diss at rival Chick-fil-A. Plus, our week-long series, Room to Run, continues as tech faces growing scrutiny, posing a threat to the sector's continued gains. Or maybe has room to run. Worldwide Exchange is back in just a moment.
Back to throw, fires right on the slant. Caught, touchdown.
He leaps and he surges in, touchdown.
This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the lights shine bright on the Las Vegas Bowl. Washington Huskies head coach Chris Peterson will coach his final game before retiring as he takes on his former school, the Boise State Broncos.
Down to the 5, he leaps for the end zone, and he is in.
To listen to this and every bowl game, just search college football today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, hook, into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Well, all this week we are looking at the market's decade of gains as part of our Room to Run series. And today, tech's dominance is certainly in focus. Investors have been pouring money into everything from memory chip makers to social media giants and it shows. The S&P's tech composite is up more than 340% over the last 10 years, compared to a paltry 191% for the broader S&P 500. For more on what tech still has to do and whether it has room to run in the new decade, I'm joined by Daniel Ives. He's the Managing Director of Equity Research at Wedbush Securities. So, Dan, a lot's happened over the past few years in technology. First of all, we've split a lot of companies off into their own sector. But tech, generally speaking, has been a driving force behind the U.S. economy, behind the markets for sure. So does tech have room to run in 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, look, in our opinion, it's a golden age for technology. And when you look at some of the dynamics going on in terms of cloud computing, for instance, enterprises, only 30% have moved to the cloud. We think that's 55% in the next 2 years. It's not just Amazon, Microsoft, it's a whole ecosystem that's going to benefit from that. Look at 5G and what I believe is going to be a super cycle for Apple and others and chip makers. In our opinion, we're only halfway through this cycle. So I still think a lot more room to run for tech, which is why we're very bullish going to 2020.
All right, so let's talk about the driving forces over the last decade. We know what they've been. It's been the mega cap tech names that were tech and maybe are now communication services. But let's throw those names in there because we've talked about Amazon. It's retail, but still kind of a tech name focus. Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Alphabet, the parent company of Google. Many of those names were the driving force behind technology. Some of those are now communication services, yes. But can we expect those mega cap tech names to keep doing what they're doing? And are they the driving force, or can we expect new leadership from other parts of the market, like in fintech or like in enterprise software elsewhere?
Look, in our opinion, in terms of FANG, I still think we're halfway through the cycle. And ultimately what's really happened is they become more utility-like in terms of how consumers use them. They interact more with an Amazon, a Facebook, Google than their average bank. And I think what you're seeing is actually the FANG names getting further into healthcare, banking, automotive. And I think that's something going forward where I still think they're going to be leaders. I do think on semis and some other areas, you will start to see, some more leadership there. You obviously have Square and financial services. But I think ultimately, we don't see any reason why the FANG is not going to continue to sort of be the pilot on the plane on this tech rally going forward in terms of everything we see with Apple front and center.
It can't all be positive. There are always bumps in the road, always hurdles along the way, and tech is facing a lot of them, especially big tech. What exactly could derail that tech thesis in the next decade?
No doubt. I think the first thing is definitely antitrust. If you look right now, if you're Zuckerberg, Bezos, and others, they're going to be spending a lot of time in the 202 area code over the next year or two. And I think the antitrust sort of spotlight, that's something, can these be broken up? We ultimately do believe it's more fines, but I think that's a broader headline risk for these companies. And then you sort of go down. You have valuations which have stretched. They need to continue to show that growth. Look what's happened in Netflix. Now you're starting to see maybe a glass half empty view because of valuation, them spending on content. And I think when you look at cloud and 5G, massive opportunities, a lot of competition going after it. You'll have winners, but you're going to have a lot of losers too. So I think as an investor, is trying to pick the spots, not just large cap, but mid cap to figure out maybe some of those diamonds in the rough.
All right, Dan Ives, always great to get your thoughts. Thank you very much. And all week long, we'll be looking at whether the markets still have room to run out here on Worldwide Exchange. Tomorrow, we look at consumers who are in the spotlight and whether they can keep
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Going. Thanks very much, Dan. Well, let's find out what else you will be talking about today. Time for this morning's top trending stories. Rahel Solomon is here with those. So, Rahel, please tell us what is trending.
Just when you thought the chicken wars had died down, Popeyes has reignited the chicken wars by taking a dig at one of its biggest competitors. The chain ran classified ads in several major newspapers seeking applicants who have experience preparing chicken sandwiches. Okay, that makes sense, right? But that can also work on Sundays. Therein lies the dig. Chick-fil-A is famously closed on Sundays, something that Popeyes has already made fun of a few times before. Another streaming platform is banking on nostalgia. Popular 90s era hideout. Nickelodeon show Legends of the Hidden Temple is making its way to mobile-only platform Quibi. And unlike its predecessor, the reimagined show will star adults rather than kids. The plot, however, will remain the same. The show's EP, executive producer, called the show's return a dream come true. And after 25 years, She did it. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You has topped the Billboard Hot 100 for the first time since its 1994 debut. This is hard to believe. She's breaking a ton of records in the process, so the iconic singer now has the longest span of number ones in history. Her first was in 1990 with Vision of Love. 29 years ago, the chart topper also extend Carey's record for most number ones among a soloist. So if she can score another number one, how about this? She will tie the Beatles at 20. Carey is one of 4 artists to log number ones in the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s.
What must the residual checks look like every time that's on?
Mariah Carey is living quite nicely.
I was going to talk to you about the chicken sandwich, but I know you too well because I know that you are a vegetarian, so I'm not going to. I will say this, that I enjoy a chicken sandwich. I haven't had the Popeyes one, but I have had Chick-fil-A, and it's great. So we'll see what happens.
Apparently a lot of people agree with you too.
I think they do.
Chick-fil-A and Popeyes.
Rahel Solomon, thank you very much. Well, in sports, the NFC South leading New Orleans Saints taking on the Indianapolis Colts last night. The stakes are high for the Colts, who are back in the playoff picture, but on the brink of elimination. But New Orleans refusing to hold back the entire game. Saints quarterback Drew Brees throwing 4 touchdowns, helping him to nab the record for all-time touchdown passes from former Colts quarterback Peyton Manning. The Colts unable to gain any kind of momentum. They fall to the Saints 34-7. And by the way, that's not the only record that Drew Brees had. He also set the single game completion record. He threw 30 passes and made completions on 29 of them, a 97% completion rate. Congratulations, Drew Brees. Well, on deck for the show, we tee it up for the moves that you need to make in the trading day ahead. Plus, Netflix offering a rare glimpse at just how many subscribers it's racked up around the world. All of that as Worldwide Exchange is back in just a moment.
Selling a home is expensive.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention, because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
Want to step up your sparkle? Get to B&Q. Our Christmas clearance is now on. We've huge savings on lights, artificial trees, decorations, and more. So grab a bargain and get your grotto glittering. Bring the magic ho-ho home with B&Q. Selected Christmas lines only, subject to availability. See DIY.com.
Ho, 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 who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Spend Christmas Day listening to the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Featuring 5 big matchups on the holiday schedule. Unwrap the action starting at 12 Eastern when the Celtics take on the Raptors in Toronto. Followed by the Bucks and the 76ers at 2:30. The holiday cheers continue with the Rockets and Warriors at 5 and the Clippers and Lakers at 8. And a showdown between the Pelicans and Nuggets at 10:30. 'Tis the season with the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
All right, time for your executive recap, the headlines you need in 60 seconds. Goldman Sachs is reportedly offering details of its bid at a Blackstone-like alternative investment group. According to reports, a memo from CEO David Solomon says the group will be tasked with raising capital and crafting client strategies for alternative investments throughout the bank. It's expected to offer more details at its annual Investor Day meeting later on next month. Netflix has released new numbers on growth overseas as it faces increasing competition in the United States. In a securities filing yesterday, the company revealed that subscriptions in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa has more than doubled since the start of 2017. And former Treasury Secretary under President Obama has announced he's endorsing former Vice President Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential race. Speaking on the closing bell yesterday, Jack Lew explained his decision.
Joe Biden has both the heart to care and the experience to lead. He has demonstrated his deep concern for an economy that works and works for working Americans, for restoring American values, and to restore America's leadership as the global and economic leader that we need to be. He's also shown he surrounds himself with people who really are the leaders of the next generation, and that he has the ability to reach across party lines and within the Democratic Party to all parts of the Democratic Party. Candidly, he has the experience and the ability to make Donald Trump a one-term president.
All right, that was Jack Lew, former Treasury Secretary under President Obama. Wall Street is coming off its fourth straight day of gains with the major averages closing at record highs. The Phase 1 trade deal between the U.S. and China has lifted the cloud of uncertainty somewhat for the markets. Joining me now is Joel Schulman, founder of Entrepreneur Shares. So, has it removed the uncertainty? Has Brexit removed the uncertainty? Well, are things more certain now?
I think things are certainly in a better spot than they were maybe back in the summer. But we've been talking about for a long time now, since early October, U.S. small caps, U.S. mid caps are ripe for a rally. We've seen that they're up about 12.5%. We think U.S. small caps, U.S. mid caps will continue to do well in this environment. We think that it's going to continue through January. We think non-U.S., particularly non-U.S. small caps, will do very well in the next, not only the next month, but through 2020.
So the view right now is that the U.S. has, I wouldn't say run its course, but it's kind of in the later stages of the market rallies that we've seen. Right. Is it fair to say then that the more attractive investing opportunities now reside abroad?
Absolutely. U.S. small caps, U.S. mid caps still have some room to run, right? They still haven't caught up in some cases to 2018 highs. But I think 2020 is going to be about non-U.S., particularly non-U.S. small cap.
Now, would you go to emerging markets for those, or would you go to developed market small caps for those?
Both. Well, we're seeing China is a strong beneficiary in Asia as a result of the trade deal, but we're seeing, in some cases, many stocks are 50% off their highs from 2017 or 16 or 15, and we see plenty of room to run for these companies in both developed and non-developed markets, non-U.S.
We've been seeing data come out over the course of the past several weeks and perhaps even a few months now about how investors continue to put cash on the sidelines. They're raking a little bit of those profits off there.
Right.
Does that concern you or make you feel like it's a contrarian indicator and that gives us more room to run in 2020?
Well, I think more the latter than the former. I think it gives us greater opportunity. I think some people may be taking off gains for what they experienced in 2019. I think we've seen some stocks in the U.S. Become appropriately priced. But I see, as I see opportunities run, and we're seeing, for example, non-U.S. small caps up about 2.7% in December, and we see, again, plenty of room to run in 2020. So I think money's going to shift, again, to U.S. small caps. U.S. mid caps still have room to run here in the U.S., and then it's going to shift non-U.S.
All right. Joel Schulman, thank you very much. Always appreciate getting your market thoughts on this. Well, that does it for Worldwide Exchange. We've got marginal losses possibly at the opening bell. Keep an eye out right here. We'll keep up all that market coverage, and Squawk Box picks all of it up right now.
Good morning. Boeing shares falling again after the company confirmed its plans to suspend production of the 737 MAX. We'll tell you what it means for investors and the overall American economy as well.
Stocks hitting new highs. We will show you how investors are preparing for different scenarios around the impeachment of President Trump.
And it is bonus season on Wall Street. This year's payouts will be better than the Jelly of the Month Club, arguably. but maybe down from last year. The numbers straight ahead. It's Tuesday, December 17th, 2019, and Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. We're going to start this morning with the markets. The Dow actually closed 100 points higher yesterday, logging its 16th record close of the year. Year to date, the Dow is up by 21%. It's been a strong year for all of the major averages. In fact, the S&P and the NASDAQ are on track for their largest gains since 2013. But the S&P could post its best year from 1997 if it just gains 2 more percentage points by the end of December. So not a long way to go to see the best year that you've seen since 1997. Take a look at the U.S. equity futures at this hour. Red arrows for both the Dow and the S&P. Dow indicated down by about 40 points. S&P off by just under a point. Then the NASDAQ indicated up by just over 4 points. And if you're watching the Treasury market, you're going to take a look right now and see that the yield for the 10-year is set at 1.857%.
And we've got a big dip in the British pound this morning. Let's tell you what's going on. It fell more than 1% after media reports in the UK said the government is looking to make it illegal to extend the post-Brexit transition period. Now, the UK is due to leave the EU by January 31st. It'll then have until the end of 2020 for the transition period. That's the time that the EU law would then continue to apply as if the UK is still a member. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to cap that period to just 1 year to help fast-track a trade deal with the EU.
I was looking past you, Phil, at Phil's here to talk about Boeing. Just to look at where the futures are down 40 because Boeing's down 5. So we'd be flat again on the Dow.
Points at the
and yesterday we would have been up a lot more if Boeing hadn't been down so much. But Boeing is suspending production of the 737 MAX jetliner next month, a drastic step after the FAA said its review of the planes would continue into next year. Boeing said it planned to reassign workers and didn't expect furloughs or layoffs, but the shutdown will have ripple effects for the economy, potentially impacting thousands of jobs across a network of over 600 firms in the plane supply chain. Boeing also announced it would leave its annual dividend unchanged for the first time in 8 years, so it's not going to hike it. And Phil LeBeau is on set with us. It's better they can save some money by doing this, Phil. Not churning out. I can't believe you could build 40 of those things in a month, which just tells you the size of their manufacturing facilities.
Absolutely.
It's just it's
why
massive. That's why it really is. It's not de minimis. It's effect on the U.S. economy. It's
massive effect on.
How do they save money if nobody's getting furloughed and nobody's getting put out?
Well, you've certainly got a lot of costs that are not going into. You're not building aircraft, so
but there's still a lot of
cash
costs.
burn. I was just reading J.P. Morgan's out with an estimate today that their cash burn was previously they estimated about $2 billion a month. They're estimating it might go down to a little over $1 billion a month.
Wow.
So it'll be cut down dramatically, but there's still going to be
even if they help some of their suppliers, because I've heard that they would offer some assistance to some of their suppliers that got hundreds.
Well, that's
of
part of the problem. How much assistance do they offer?
Right.
The concern for Boeing is that you have a supply chain that if they have to go through layoffs and they have to bring down their own production dramatically,
then they
some of the suppliers ramping it back up, it's going to be choppy, it's going to be messy. Look, I think most people look at this news and they say, when I look at 2020, I'm not expecting anything in the first half, and I'm kind of writing off the second half of this year. J.P. Morgan's out with a note, and I've heard this from other people, not to expect a clean year in terms of deliveries, in terms of earnings, et cetera, from Boeing until 2022.
You have to store those babies, don't you? I mean, you can't leave them out in the snow and ice.
They've got more than 400 of them.
And if you're adding another 40 every month, that's another 40.
They have more than 400 that have been sitting there
that they've space, right?
Well, a lot of them are there in Renton, Washington, outside the plant. I mean, you've seen the pictures. I don't know if we have it. There's pictures of these. They're in a parking lot. There's people who are showing up at work, and they're parking right next to a 737 MAX. They're not all over the place, but that's at some point. I mean, they've got some down in San Antonio. They're out in Moses Lake.
I mean, it could lend us one, but we probably want one that is a little safer than the ones that. Phil, is there any chance that the fix is more than software, and what would that mean?
Oof. I mean, are you talking about let's redesign?
No, not completely, but something up the production line to where it's not just software.
No, I think it's software. I think, and most, when you talk with people at the FAA,
they
believe it's software.
You have to go back and retrofit the 400 that are sitting there.
Right. It's software. This is not like they're going to have to go back and tear open these planes.
Okay. And not to belabor the point about the credibility of management, but where are we?
It's low. It's very low. It's low because what they have made the mistake of doing is make assumptions repeatedly going back, and we were talking about this before the show. Yeah. The assumptions that they made in terms of when we redesigned the 737, this is what it's going to do, this is how it will operate, this is how pilots will react. Well, those assumptions were wrong. Then there were assumptions about how long it would take to fix it. Right. Those assumptions were wrong. Then there were assumptions about dealing with the FAA. Way off. Right. Way off. I mean, they misplayed the FAA horribly earlier this year. So all of those factors come together in terms of management's credibility being very low right now.
When you say misplaying the FAA, they thought it was going to be business as usual. We'll kind of do these things and then tell the FAA where it's going along. There's a new sheriff in town, the new administrator from the FAA.
And the die was cast the day of the second, or a couple of days after the accident, when the FAA stuck with them. Mm-hmm. Remember this? The rest of the world was saying, shut it down, the plane is not safe, and the FAA said, nope. The data that we have, the data we're getting from Boeing, from other airlines, it's all good. And now the FAA at the end of it comes back and says, oh God, we got egg on our face.
We had a guy on yesterday, a Boeing analyst, who has a price target of $518 on the stock. Right. You see where the stock is right now.
Is that Carter Copeland? That's a two-year.
It's a two-year, and that's the big deal. Like you just said, everybody's writing off basically all of next year. Right. 2 years from now, I mean, maybe it's a different story if they can get things back up and running.
Crater said below 300 is obviously a possibility at this point. But, in December last year, it was below 300, right? Yeah. I think at the lows.
Before any of this.
And then it had a massive run-up after late November of 2018.
Well, I just wonder what it means. That every quarter it's shut down. It's 0.3 of a point of GDP. We're trying to
it's like $2 billion a month that Boeing itself is running.
But remember, a lot of that GDP is also factored into the deliveries, and they haven't been delivering these, for some time.
Well, it's hard to do 3% if just one company whacks you for 0.3.
What happens if they allow it to go back up, they recertify it, and they deliver 400 planes in a month? What does that do?
Well, they won't deliver 400 in a month. See, that's the reason that they did this. Remember, 2 weeks ago, the FAA came out and they said, we're not giving you designated authorization, which means in the past, it would mean if I was the FAA and you were Boeing, I'd say, hey, Becky, you know what? You're good enough. I've seen what you do. You can go and certify these planes on your own. That's not how the FAA is doing it now.
Be a slow
the FAA is saying, we do it one at a time. We put the airworthiness certification on every single plane. So that's why it's going to be a slow ramp up. Now, that might change. A couple of months down the road, if there are no issues, if the FAA feels comfortable, they may come to you and they say, okay, you can go ahead and you can start certifying these, and then you may see the deliveries increase from there.
Yeah.
Phil, we will see you later. I think we'll see you later, right? Did you come back to be on Squawk Box? Or do you have other things?
Say yes.
Joe, it's all about you.
No, about the show.
Oh, yeah. I got on the plane last night. They said, why are you going to New York? I said, see, Joe.
I showed you some cool video already today. Have you ever seen a dog that can do those things?
No.
How do you say a Belgian mount? What did you call it?
I thought it was a Malinois.
Malinois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
The military dogs. They're 15 feet into the air, climb up the side of it. Why do I get teary when they say? I think because they're military dogs, right?
Probably.
And because you like dogs better than people?
That I've said, and then I took it back because it sounds horrible that I prefer dogs.
That's why you took it back. It sounds terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not because it's not true.
Right. Exactly.
Phil, we will see you a little later. Some corporate news out overnight. Consumer goods giant Unilever warning that it's going to be missing its full-year revenue growth targets for the year. It blamed a slowdown in South Asia and weakness in North America. It said a recovery will take time. It expects the growth rate to remain at the lower end of its guided range in 2020. You can see Unilever shares now down by just over 6%. And Roku shares falling as well. The company's CFO, Steve Loudon, plans to step down after helping find his successor. Loudon joined Roku back in 2015 and helped oversee the transition to a public company and into new areas of streaming. Roku shares have been on a tear, up more than 30% this year, right now down by about 3%.
And we've got a data dump from Netflix. Here's what's happening. The company releasing new metrics revealing that its subscribers in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa have now doubled since the start of 2017. Latin America also posting strong growth, while Asia is still a small portion of the overall business. Netflix, of course, facing slowing growth in the key U.S. market as streaming competition picks up. The company will now group its U.S. results with Canada's in financial reports. But really, more than anything, guys, the effort here by doing this quote-unquote data dump, if you will, is to try to get investors to refocus how they even think about this company, where the growth is going to come from, to get them to spend a little bit more attention on the international piece.
Well, what are we talking
about? Get people focused a little bit less on the U.S. piece, where the competition really lies.
What are we talking about? Was it a big dump, or was it a? It was a lot of stuff. The data dump. Do you know?
Are you a child? Are you a child?
You need to ask.
He's a child. Just go. And he laughs at his own jokes. Just go to commercial. Go to commercial. Tease what you got here.
Just when we have certain little. Look at her. Look at her. You have certain little phrases that.
I'm in kindergarten now. I'm in kindergarten. You're about to cry.
How old are the boys? That's because of your reaction. How old are the boys?
The boys are 9. They would
like that. They would like that.
If
coming up,
this was a children's show.
You took a big dump. No, you did.
Netflix did. Coming up, what should you buy at all-time highs? We're going to talk about market records, areas of opportunity. That's next. And later, bonus season for bankers. We're going to tell you just how merry this Christmas is going to be on Wall Street. Geez, I hope these guys all do really well. Squawk Box coming right back.
Today's big number, 29. That's how many record closes the S&P 500 had this year. Stocks are on pace for their largest yearly gain since 2013. This CNBC program is...
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Whether you call yourself a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something else, the road to 2020 is on TuneIn.
What a night! And a complete earthquake. This was
Follow every step of the Democratic primaries while hearing the latest headlines from the White House with live 24-hour news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more.
We're closing in on the first results in the battle for the White House.
Experience the election through the sources you trust with the nonstop news channels on TuneIn.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
markets continuing to make new highs, but are they running too hot? Let's talk markets and your money right now. Michael Tyler, Chief Investment Officer at Eastern Bank Wealth Management. Here on set is Debbie Cunningham, Chief Investment Officer of Global Liquidity Markets at Federated. We respond a lot of times to news here, I think, but a lot of these, you know, the business media, they assign stuff to people every day, right? And writers say, okay, here's the one that I saw this morning, my hype du jour from some silly, why Wall Street thinks the stock market is on the verge of a melt-up. So where did they get that? And is that what Wall Street thinks? And what are the chances for that, Deborah?
Why Wall Street thinks the stock market is on the verge of a melt-up.
I mean, it's been melting up for...
Not a meltdown, a melt-up.
Been melting up for a couple of months.
I thought he was going to say melt-up. Yeah, I thought so too. So this is positive, not negative.
That's what they're saying. And we've had 2 months of how many of the 16 record highs?
Leading up, I mean... That's
right, and I think there's lots of positive factors. I mean, we have, you know, global issues, Brexit. It's not completed, but it's in a pretty good phase at this point with the elections behind us. You've got China trade negotiations that at least the phase one aspect of it's completed, and expectations for at least slow but steady movement in 2020 is pretty high. You've got interest rates that are low. You've got a consumer.
So you're positive.
Absolutely.
About next year too. Slow but steady though.
Slow but steady.
The reason I say that in the last time goes very quickly, but 3 months ago there were times when we were down under 2,900 thinking that the guys at Morgan Stanley or some of these other bears were going to be right about the 2,700s and the 2,500 targets that they had. Sure. You see where we are today. We're almost 3,200 on the S&P, almost 3,200. So I don't know whether these guys throw in the towel at this point, but we certainly have had 2 months.
So that headline makes you nervous because...
No, it doesn't really make me nervous. It just, you know, all the stuff about trade, about Brexit, about impeachment that we've been worried about, the market, either it's the Fed, and I've seen people say that you can draw a line for QE4, what the Fed has done, Michael, and they call the buying and T-bill buying and everything, and even the repo market. Everything the Fed has supported, Michael, is that why? Does that correlate with that move on the right-hand side of the chart, Michael? Is it the Fed?
Oh, that's one part of it, absolutely. But, you know, Debbie's right. Everything has gone well so far this year, and everywhere you look. And to me, that's the biggest thing that I worry about. We're not on the verge of a melt-up. We're in the middle of one. You know, it's up 8% or something just since the end of September. And these things are going very well. That's true. But I worry that how much more good news is there that we're waiting for? Yeah, maybe we'll get phase 2 of a China deal. Maybe not. That's kind of at risk. We're looking for 8 to 10% earnings growth next year. Maybe that's too much. So there are still a few things to worry about, but the list is getting shorter. And as these accomplishments, as these good things are happening, the spending deal that was just announced, for example, averting a government shutdown right through next year's election, these are all good things, but too much of a good thing might lead investors to be a little too happy.
I don't know how long the market looks ahead. Maybe the election is not quite on the radar yet, because, I mean, we got an impeachment vote this week. It's only the third time in history.
You looked at the betting line.
I know.
The betting line says Trump wins, so what's the...
The betting line's at about 47 cents, but...
So what's...
Well, because there's always a...
Tail risk, as you might describe.
Yes, a Bernie tail risk. Bernie is almost tied with Biden. What would happen in a Bernie or Elizabeth Warren if Frank Luntz was on yesterday? Said it's not the chances aren't zero Bernie Sanders could be president.
They are not zero. They're probably not over 50%, but they're definitely not zero.
Are they over 20? I mean, don't tell me 50. 15.
No. The likelihood, though, of that happening is less than 50%, even in a best case scenario.
Well, what would that do? Would that get you more defensive?
Definitely more defensive. You've got less of upside, less upside at that point in time.
What do you count? You're couch less upside, Michael. Is that how you would characterize a Bernie presidency? You less upside? I think I would put everything in my mattress.
I'd like to know who's going to win Congress and the Senate too. You know, there are checks and balances, but having said that, I don't think there's upside at all if Bernie wins the presidency. I think the markets will go down. But you know, the way to look at that is next year we've got a much higher probability of small gains, especially in the stock market, but there is a much smaller probability of a negative year, and if it's because of President Sanders or Warren, or because of a recession, or because of any number of other things that could happen, the downside magnitude is bigger than the upside magnitude. It's just much less likely.
Is that a reason to get out of the
market? I
think
even in the case of a Democratic presidency, you end up with something that is a recession risk, but not in 2020. There's nothing that indicates at this point that quick of a turnaround is going to happen.
But would it be something that the market would sniff out? Because markets are forward looking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's just weird. I guess it's not a constitutional crisis this week. Right?
Well, no, and honestly,
it is a constitutional
even
crisis.
if Trump is
It's
impeached,
not a constitutional crisis.
If it was a constitutional crisis, usually you don't have a series of new highs in the stock market with an actual constitutional
When's
crisis.
the last time we had a constitutional crisis?
I guess Nixon, probably. I don't know whether Clinton ever rose to that. I think they did once Jerry came in. We'd already lost
Don't
Agnew.
you think that markets look at earnings and they look at cash flows? They don't look at who's president. And I think that if Trump is impeached and if he's thrown out by the Senate, which is unlikely, then you get President Pence, which is basically the same economic policy but less baggage.
Right. Well, he's got. Some people think there's more baggage in terms of
different baggage,
religious. Right. Yeah. All right, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up when we return, a lot more on Squawk this morning. Get ready for some disappointment on Wall Street. I hate to be the bearer of bad news like this. This year's bonus is expected to fall short of last year's. We'll crunch the numbers and we'll do it next. As we head to a break, though, take a look at the gains in Asia overnight. The Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite each up more than 1%. Squawk returns right after this.
Trading Block is sponsored by Columbia.
Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown. It is college football bowl season on TuneIn. This Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, the bowl season kicks off from the beautiful Bahamas. Back to throw, fires, running the slant, caught, touchdown. The Charlotte 49ers will be playing their first bowl game in school history. They'll be matched up against the Buffalo Bulls. Don't miss the first bowl game of the season. To listen to this and every bowl game, just search college football today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
As we wave goodbye to the 2010s, TuneIn is remembering some of the decade's biggest news stories.
In 2011, the Arab Spring sparks anti-government protests across the Middle East and Northern Africa. In 2016, the United Kingdom votes to leave the European Union, forcing the ongoing Brexit crisis. And in 2019, Hong Kong erupts in 6 months of pro-democracy protest against mainland China.
Search news on TuneIn to be there when the next big story breaks.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Each year around this very time, Wall Street bankers celebrate more than just the holidays. It is bonus season. Our next guest computes payouts and trends across the industry and found this year, though, won't bring as much cheer as in years past. I want to bring in Michael Carpy, who's co-founder of the Options Group. Good morning. Is this like a lump of coal in my stocking, or is this just okay?
It's not a lump of coal, and it's I don't want to be the Grinch here either, but last few years the comp has trended up, and we've seen the revenues go down a bit. So we see this year to be a plateau year in terms of compensation. So our speculation is that comp this year is going to trend towards the downturn in all different products across the board.
If I am a winner, who is the big winner this year? What group do I have to be in if I'm in some unit at Wall Street Bank right now?
So fixed income is a winner this year. Fixed income comp has been trending down for the last 3-5 years, and this is the first time that we see the credit and mortgages within fixed income are going to do better than some other products within fixed income, like rates, emerging markets, FX, etc.
So fixed income, but we're looking at the screen here. It says down 1.1%.
It's the global picture that we're looking at.
Is there any group where it's going to be up meaningfully?
Within fixed income, credit and mortgages will be up.
And then I see it looks like the biggest loser might very well be anyone who's living in the equities world.
Equities, last 3 years, the comp went up. So if you look at where we are in terms of revenues and what's happened, even though you see the stock market at all-time highs, and you see the volumes, but the volumes weren't there. And equities is taking a hit this year because, simply as much money wasn't made. And look at what's happened in Europe and in Asia. So it affected the global revenues for the equity division.
Can we just talk structurally what's happening on Wall Street? Because it also feels, what we haven't really talked about here is the commoditization of so many of these different business units in terms of how some of these banks are approaching it, some of the AI and machine learning and other things that are being implemented, and what that's actually doing to comp across the board.
So look, a lot of people talk about AI and machine learning, but, has it correlated into...
Not yet?
Not yet. It's still to be seen. But data science and analytics is, being implemented into banks and institutions massively. A lot of hedge funds are looking at AI, machine learning, and seeing how the results would be. But, it's very few that have figured it out, and the ones that have figured it out are the winners.
If I'm a rain-making M&A banker, how am I doing this year?
Look, superstars always find ways to get paid within institutions.
Right.
So if you're a great M&A banker, you should be all right. But our survey shows
how much am I making?
Depends.
I'm an MD, and I'm killing it this year.
You could make $2 million. If
$2 million
or more.
I'm looking for 10.
10, those days are over. There might be a few people that might trend into those levels, but those days have sort of been
And what happens if I'm just an Excel monkey?
Then you're going to sit on a seat and be happy getting a paycheck.
And how much am I getting for staying up all night working on these spreadsheets?
You get a base salary, and base salaries depend on titles on Wall Street. So if you're an MD, you're getting a $400,000 base salary. If you're a director, you're getting a $250,000 base salary. And if you're under that, you're getting about $175,000 in base salaries. And our speculation is that some of these areas, some of the people are going to see zeros as well because the bonus pools are not that large.
There it is,
you're
everybody.
going to have a hard time ginning up much sympathy in this era.
Look, to us, 6 figures is 6 figures. It's a lot of money that Wall Street gets paid. And, I tell people all the time that you just can't focus on short-term greed. You got to look at, long-term and see where your career goes.
You've got it all backwards, my friends. You've got it all back. Short-term greed. What was the model who used to not get up out of bed? Who would say they don't get out of bed for less than, 10 grand? What was the... You know what I'm talking about?
Look, if you look at the new surveys that are coming out, I was just talking to a professor the other day, and, with the Millennium Group, compensation is not everything. It probably stacks third or fourth in where they want to be. So, it all depends in what direction you want to take your career and your life.
I was just joking. I was trying to mimic the boomers. The boomers. Joe's here. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
When we come back, Congress working to pass a spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. We will tell you what's actually in that bill, including the elimination of some taxes and a measure to curb teen smoking. Right now, as we head to a break, let's take a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers.
I'm too much. Old friends call me snow miser. Whatever I touch turns to snow in my clutch. I'm too much.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
Hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, and a shot, and he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Site in Times Square. Take a look at U.S. equity futures at this hour. The Dow looks like it would open off about 32 points. S&P 500 looking to open marginally higher, almost on NASDAQ looking to open about 6.5 points higher. And we have some news just in from Southwest Airlines this morning. It has now removed the grounded 737 MAX jet from its flight schedule for another 5 weeks through April 13th. That follows a similar move by American Airlines. But as we talk about the dominoes falling on this decision by Boeing, really, it wasn't even their decision, I should say, but the move by Boeing effectively to halt production, we're starting to see the ramifications of that trickle throughout industry. Meantime, a few interesting provisions to tell you about in the massive government spending bill that was unveiled yesterday. Lawmakers hope to pass the bill before current government funding runs out. That happens on Saturday to avoid a partial government shutdown. The bill denies President Trump the full $5 billion that he had requested to help build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, keeping funding static at $1.37 billion. It would also raise the U.S. tobacco purchasing age from 18 to 21. That would include e-cigarettes, by the way, importantly. It would also repeal several taxes that were created to help fund Obamacare, including the 40% Cadillac tax on generous health insurance plans and the 2.3% tax on the sale of medical devices.
It's interesting. The Cadillac's tax was something that the unions were opposed to originally because there are also places where you see some pretty good medical plans. I wonder what this means for employers if you roll back some of those taxes, because employers started pushing a lot of the co-pays, like pushing up the co-pays and putting more of the cost back to the employees at that
maybe
point.
Now they like it.
I don't know. I just wonder if the reverse would be true if those taxes came off, if they would start to pick up more of the cost. My guess is no. Like once you stop paying for something as a corporation, you don't tend to pick it back up unless it's something that because of such a tight job market, you need to offer better benefits than everybody else.
Interesting development. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. In the meantime, the Sackler family, the owners of Purdue Pharma, transferred more than $10 billion from the company to its trust and holding companies over 10 years. That's according to a new report from the New York Times. It probably adds further scrutiny on how much the Sackler family should pay to resolve lawsuits that Purdue Pharma faces over the opioid epidemic. Purdue filed for bankruptcy protection in September as it tries to build support for a proposed settlement that the company estimates is worth $10 billion. I think the key part of that is the Sackler family has offered to pay about $3 billion or more to hand back some of the profits that they'd taken out of it. But this report shows the accounting that from 2007 on, as the opioid crisis was really building up, they were taking a lot of money and putting it into offshore accounts, into trust funds, and into other places, kind of taking the money, the profits that they were getting from the opioid sales.
It's a lot of money. The implication is that they knew.
Well, because their money that they were taking out of the company ramped up greatly over a 10-year period. Now,
that they knew
what was coming.
You had to get it out.
Get the money out.
Get the money out. Like
it was too good to be true.
And you had to somehow hide it.
Honestly, the money was probably piling up much larger than it had been in previous years, too. I guess it depends on how you look at these things. But the idea that they would pay $3 billion and still have billions of dollars left that they had taken out from these profits that are coming from sales of opioids. I think that sticks
for a while. Anybody who had any type of skin in the game at least tried to convince themselves that chronic pain is something that
can be managed, that
we're trying to deal with here, and they could fall back on that. I think it became increasingly clear how addictive it was, and the opium lollipops that were supposed to be used for cancer patients suddenly became, not just used for cancer.
Just looking at the sales and where these things were being distributed, there's no way you can rationalize that this was all going for absolute
in a sick sort of way as far as a business model. It's something that's highly addictive and makes you feel like there's a pretty good business model.
I saw a headline yesterday, and I don't know what the company was, but some company involved and was making profits from opioid sales was now making profits on the drug to try and wean you off the opioids.
Right. And it's like corporate dealers.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of people who've gotten, you saw, what was the name of Pablo or whatever, and saw how much money he made.
Pablo Escobar?
Yeah, what was that? Narcos.
Yes.
Narcos, right? Pretty lucrative. He wasn't enough land in Colombia to bury it. He had it was like blowing around in the wind, all those dollars.
All right, when we come back, the House is set to vote on the impeachment of President Trump this week. We'll get an update on the stories out of Washington that may impact markets and your money next. And later, co-founder of The Verge and Vox will join us to talk about safety in the Apple App Store. Stay tuned. You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC.
This CNBC program is sponsored by Capgemini.
Hello, I'm Jo Brand. When I see people homeless over Christmas, I find it really upsetting. Whether they're sleeping in doorways, on buses, or in hostels, it just shouldn't be happening. But it doesn't have to be like this. This Christmas, crisis centres across Britain are providing warmth and safety, plus long-term support to find people a job and a home. Please reserve a place for someone at Crisis this Christmas for just £28.87p. Go to crisis.org.uk now. Thank you.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention. Because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, hook, into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Welcome back, everybody. The House of Representatives is poised to vote on the impeachment of President Trump this week. For a look at this and other stories driving the D.C. political agenda, let's welcome Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy. He's an ally of President Trump. Governor, thank you for being here today. It's good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You sat down with President Trump yesterday. What was it that you talked about? What did you learn?
Well, several governors and myself and some of his staff sat down. We talked about regulations. We talked about what's happening with the trade agreements. And basically, we just had an overview of what's happened the past several years in terms of the overall U.S. economy. And things are all looking pretty good.
What do you think about trade in particular? That's been front and center for our viewers, kind of watching what's happened with that. To give you any insight into how he's thinking about China right now?
Well, he's still working through that process. I think they're on the verge of solidifying this Phase 1 agreement, and that's going to be good for Alaska and America. Alaska trades with China. It's our biggest trading partner. Next is Japan. And we ship over a lot of seafood, for example, to the Far East. So we get this first phase wrapped up, and then we dive deeper into the rest of the agreements. I think it's going to be really good for this country.
The House is poised to vote on impeachment this week. What's your feeling of the proceedings? What do you hear from your constituents back in Alaska?
Most of Alaskans, most of our constituents support the president. President's been very good for this country. Back when he was elected in November of 16, the Dow was about 18,000. It's now about 28,000. All the numbers are looking good for the country in Alaska. So our economy in Alaska is improving. Our unemployment rate's at record lows. Our GDP is up. And it's the same for across the country. So it's going to be hard, I think, for folks on the left to convince the rest of the country that this president should be impeached. And the economic indicators, like I said, they're hard to beat.
You know, the country has gotten much more divided, and people seem to be digging in on both sides. You yourself faced a recall vote back in Alaska, in your home state. What do you think's happening here? And as a governor, how do you kind of work with this and try and find a way to build consensus on both sides?
Well, the impeachment was being talked about in some circles before the president even took office. And we all know that it started immediately after he took office in earnest. In my case, we were 3 months into my first term. There was a talk about a recall. And this was spearheaded by folks initially on the left that were not happy with the election results, did not want a certain agenda implemented in Alaska. We're going to be making sure that we get out and speak to all Alaskans during this legislative session and talk about the good things that are happening in Alaska and get input from Alaskans on how we can fix some of the things that we need to work on.
Do you get the sense, though, that things are getting more divided, that people are kind of digging in on the trenches on either side?
I think to an extent, folks are, as you say, digging in certain respects, but the average American and the average Alaskan wants us all to work together to move the country forward and move the state forward. And that's my intention. In speaking with the president yesterday, he would love to be able to work with the other side, the other party, the Democrats, on a whole host of issues. But this impeachment and to some extent the recall effort up in Alaska is a distraction away from doing the business for the people of both Alaska and this country.
You tweeted to Elon Musk recently about the Cybertruck, said you'd love to have him come build it in Alaska. Did you hear back from him?
Not yet. We're going to reach out to him again. We believe that Alaska produces our minerals and rare earths better than any other place on the planet. Our environmental regulations, our permitting process are very stringent. And so we take care of the environment. Mr. Musk is going to need, as other manufacturers are going to need, our rare earths, our elements, our materials, our minerals. And so we do it better than anyone. We'd like them to come up, take a look at Alaska. I know that he has a proving ground up in the central part of Alaska for his vehicles. And so we're gonna talk to a number of folks about the good things that Alaska can do.
We like those EVs too, Governor, but please keep drilling. Drill, baby, drill. Who said that one time? Somebody said drill, baby, drill. You'll keep doing that, right? I mean, don't throw, you got some good hydrocarbons up in in Alaska too. That's a lot of the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a renaissance in the North Slope in our oil patch. We used to be producing about 2 billion barrels or 2 million barrels per day. Just a few days ago, we produced, I believe it was our 16th billionth barrel of oil, and we are looking forward to being part of the energy dominance of this country. And so we're going to do our part.
Excellent.
Governor, I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Have a great Christmas.
You too.
Coming up, the Boeing ripple effect. The company is going to halt production of the 737 MAX in January. Later in the show, we're going to cover what it means for management there and what it means for the economy, maybe some of the other companies affected. First, though, we're going to focus on what it means for Boeing shareholders. Squawk Box coming right back.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You'll get interviews, original content, and behind-the-scenes access. Look for us on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to Squawk Pod today.
When it comes to your customers' expectations, Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want to step up your sparkle? Get to B&Q. Our Christmas clearance is now on. We've huge savings on lights, artificial trees, decorations, and more. So grab a bargain and get your grotto glittering. Bring the magic ho-ho home with B&Q. Selected Christmas lines only, subject to availability. See DIY.com.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing? What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention. Because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. Excludes Mini Electric. UK residents aged 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Boeing shares under further pressure this morning after the company confirmed yesterday it would suspend production of the 737 MAX. We're getting wind of this. The stock is now negative for the year. Joining us to discuss what's next, Seth Kaplan, principal at Kaplan Research. And I actually was channeling you a little bit earlier, Seth, with the worst case scenario when I posed the question to Phil about whether there's any scuttlebutt about something above a software fix. And that's, you said that at least has been, I guess, murmured at this point, although there's no reason to think it's going to go to that, right? But that would be bad.
Exactly, and exactly. No indication now. I mean, there have been talks over the months about various other concerns about the aircraft. Right now, looks like still flight control issues, which are software issues. Those issues that we're all too well familiar with the MCAS system. But yeah, as Boeing continues to produce airplanes, it has to hope that that's all it is, that it's a matter of just bringing in the new software, because otherwise it would turn out to have produced planes that are obsolete that you have to go back and retrofit again. That's just something we have to consider a non-zero risk now, along with all the other things that have surprised us over the months, but not something that's likely at this point.
A non-zero risk, but you know what? It's not, and it probably, let's hope it is. The zero risk that they have to do that, because it's a great company. We want them to get back on their feet. But the minute you realize that the old planes didn't even have an MCAS because they had a different structure that didn't even need it, and they worked fine, of course you'd ask whether the structural differences really were necessary, and whether you need to reverse those. I would think maybe not. I guess we save enough fuel, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, the MCAS was created because of the new placement of the engines.
Yeah, it's an unusual airplane. I mean, if you think about it, usually you design an airplane physically, right? Aerodynamically first, Joe, and then the technology helps. In this case, you had a plane where, because of the need, or at least what Boeing decided was the need, to make the plane feel as similar to the old plane as possible, They put new engines on the old airframe. They were less lucky than Airbus. Airbus was able to put new engines on the old plane and it would fly the same. Boeing couldn't do that. I mean, all of these airframes were designed decades before any of this was envisioned. Just unlucky for Boeing that when it put the new engines on, it had to move the engines for them to fit on the wing. Then when it did that, in order for the plane to feel like the old plane and to not sort of pitch up and perhaps go into a stall, that's where MCAS came in, and here we are.
Hey, Seth, we keep talking about the management and the credibility of the company. To me, it made a lot of sense for Doug Smellenberg actually to stay at the company, in part because they were in the middle of this crisis. And, as you weigh the cost versus maybe some of the credibility issues at that time, taking somebody out of the seat in the middle of the game can be difficult. The question I have for you, though, now, given where we are, is whether you think that changes.
Yeah, so I guess what are we, about 2 months since Kevin McAllister, who was the head of the commercial division, I mean, obviously a high-level official there, was essentially sacrificed. Muhlenberg, as you said, stayed in. I think at this point, well, obviously Boeing's board at this point feels that the continuity is important, and you can understand investors feeling that way too. But at some point here, it starts to become a valid question that when, change for change's sake, obviously not always a good thing, whether the unknown becomes better than continuing down this same path. And you can't blame people for asking that question.
Hey, I'm asking the question, what's your answer, though?
Yeah. No, I mean, at this point, I don't know who comes in and quickly gets their hands around this and gets up to speed. Just understands what's going on better, has the institutional knowledge more than he does. I right now would rather see this, at least see if this is a first quarter event. I think when the fact that we've seen the shares pounded, despite something that wasn't hard to imagine, that Boeing would have to suspend production, shows investors punishing them not just for the news, which wasn't shocking, but for the lack of, if not a lack of candor, just a lack of ability to foresee what everybody else saw. I mean, a week ago, Boeing was still saying this plane could fly again this year when basic math told you it couldn't. So I would say that if the plane isn't up and flying and at least really close to certification by the end of the first quarter, that's when I would expect and hope to see a change at the very top of the company.
When a company does switch the CEO, then the media can no longer ask, what about the CEO, obviously? And you've been asking that question the entire time, Andrew, obviously, and they're probably sick of hearing it, so I just do it just for that reason. But I'm not sure that makes sense if he is an engineer and if he is the person that that can have the best chance of bringing it back online as quickly as possible. I don't know if I do it for the media, just because they like to ask questions and are looking for someone.
That's the question. That's what I'm asking.
Well, and it's because of, the media is going to do that. That someone's. Why do you think he should? Because someone's head has to roll, or he wasn't in tune with he wasn't as empathetic as he should have been, or what reason are you sort of thinking that he should be gone, just so it's no longer asked about it anymore?
Look, I'm not advocating for him to be not in that role.
It's just the question
I'm asking the question because it's a fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three.
In terms of what? What did he fool you?
He has told the public, and the company has told the public one thing multiple times now about when this plane is going to get back in the air. The relationship with regulators matters. Right. All of the regulator, the conversation. So you think he's had enough? Matters. He's had enough strikes against him. I'm not making the argument. I'm just suggesting to you that once you get into these kind of very complicated places.
Okay, we got it. All right, sorry, they said 10 seconds. Thank you.
That's the issue.
Okay.
A report from our next guest talking about Apple's App Store and whether it's full of dangerous and fraudulent apps. We'll talk about that and more right after this.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
In Washington, D.C., there's only one word in everybody's mouth: impeachment. As the impeachment process moves on to the next stage, don't miss history unfolding on TuneIn. Wherever you are when the latest witness takes the stand, you can listen to every hearing live as it's happening on Capitol Hill. And between hearings, turn to stations like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News Talk for bombshells, breaking headlines, and bold analysis every step of the way. Search Impeachment News on TuneIn to hear the latest.
Next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Greta Gerwig on bringing Louisa May Alcott's novel Little Women to the big screen.
Women have all kinds of practice imagining themselves as men, and men have very little practice imagining themselves as women.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Boeing suspending production of its grounded 737 MAX. The stock trending lower this morning. What it means for executives at the company is coming up.
From impeachment to the budget to trade, get ready for a big week in Washington. What investors should be watching, all straight ahead.
Plus a new report on fake apps, how to spot them and keep your kids safe as the second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. I can't even tell you folks what's going on during the commercial break. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin. Joe Kernan happens to be here.
I'm trying to help.
Is here.
Crystals.
Says he's trying to help. We'll see about that. Yeah. U.S. equity futures at this hour. Take a look at what's going on right now. Show you where things stand. Dow looks like it would open off about 20 points. NASDAQ looking, though, to open higher, about 8 points higher. S&P 500 up about 2 points. And Becky's got some of the big headlines this morning.
That's right. Let's tell you about what's going on this morning. Boeing is temporarily suspending production of its grounded 737 MAX jet. That comes as regulators make it clear that they will take their time in approving the jet's return to service. Just a few moments ago, Southwest Airlines announced that it was taking 737 MAX flights off its schedule through April 13th. Right now, Boeing shares down by about 1.6% this morning. Amazon is temporarily blocking some third-party sellers from using FedEx's ground delivery network. That ban applies to shipments covered by Amazon's Prime program. Amazon is trying to fulfill its promise of one-day delivery during the holiday season, it says. The company did not say how long the new restriction would last, but of course, this limits the number of options that third-party sellers have at that point in terms of trying to get the packages to you. And it does come after a very public dispute between the two companies where FedEx says, forget it, we're not delivering your stuff anymore. And Amazon said, fine, we'll build our own. The boards of Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot parent PSA Group are going to be meeting separately today. They're trying to finalize a proposed $50 billion merger of those two automakers.
And a record close for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. I want to talk about markets right now. Joining us right now is Gabriela Santos, global market strategist at JP Morgan Asset Management. We got Sam Stovall, chief investment strategist at CFRA. Good morning.
Morning.
To both of you.
Morning.
We've got, 2 weeks left? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, basically.
2 weeks. So can we speak about sort of the should we care about the technicals of the last 2 weeks of the year, or is that sort of an irrelevancy in terms of how you actually think? And I know that's such a short-term way to be, but I know that there are people. Look, I actually was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody who was saying, do I want to put any money to work in these last 2 weeks because they have a little bit of money on the sideline? Someone was actually talking about a bonus. There's stuff happening. And so the question is sort of, what are you supposed to do in the moment? What do you say?
So we've been talking to a lot of our clients who've had a really great year and frankly a really great 10 years, right? About taking the time to actually right size a little bit here towards the end of the year, right? To make sure that we're going
sell, lighten up the load.
If it has gotten a little bit over your allocation that you would like to have. So going into 2020, we think it makes sense to be a little bit overweight equities, but maybe with the recent run, you've gotten a little bit too overweight the equity piece. So take the moment to look, make sure you're positioned properly for 2020, and maybe that involves selling some of the winners. It's been a great year.
Where are you at?
Well, I think, technically you're getting confirmation from the small cap stocks that the larger ones having hit new highs are really justified and that there is potential for longer term appreciation going forward. Remember last year we really did have a Santa Claus rally because the market advanced after it bottomed on Christmas Eve.
Okay, but if you look, so the VIX is at ridiculous lows. You have this view that the Fed is going to do nothing next year. There's part of me that would think to do the opposite, not to lighten up, but to say this is actually going to be better than people expect. Or do you think it's just so built into the case?
I think that's the problem, right? The good news is we have had a good year. The bad news is we've had a good year. And so valuation, especially for U.S. equities, right, already at 18 times. So as much as we can have a positive view on the fundamentals next year, which we do, the valuations are a little bit of a headwind to the returns that you can expect. And of course, the risks haven't completely gone away. So it is likely, of course, as always, to have moments of volatility and correction, and you want to be positioned appropriately for that.
Yeah, we've had pullbacks, 5 to 10% declines about every 9 months on average. And
we're still waiting for one, right?
With the PE ratio now, as Gabriela mentioned, at about 18.7. Remember back to January of a couple of years ago, we were at 19.3, and then we ended up having a pretty meaningful decline. But I think we have to really start to worry about interest rates, inflation, et cetera, for us to go deeper than 10%.
Okay, if you have to keep your money in U.S. equities, where do you want them then?
So this is a bit of an unpopular view, but we would have both value and growth. And this is really our focus, a little bit less in 2020.
Seems like you're getting it, you're having your cake and eating it too.
Let me explain. It's around this idea of a theme around income and focusing less on capital appreciation for next year, given that valuation's already at over 18 times, focusing more on total shareholder yield. What are the sectors that can give me a good dividend and buyback yield? And actually, you find them both in value and growth. You find them in financials and energy, and you find them in tech.
Are you looking for those that yield north of 3%, or are you happy with a more modest yield on that? Because there are some stocks that are yielding some pretty high.
So actually, if you combine dividends and buyback yield, you can look to financials and get a 7% yield.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which financials are you looking at?
So the large cap banks, right? And that includes the buybacks as well, right? That's a crucial component as well. But we also look at the energy sector, which has been completely left behind this year, shall we say.
And you think that's a value play?
And with a dividend yield of about 4%, that stable income stream, at least for 2020.
Okay, make this interesting. Tell me you disagree with her.
Well, I guess I can't really say I totally disagree with it.
It's already very interesting.
More interesting.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Gab.
I appreciate it, Joe.
Okay. No, but I'm just looking at the technicals for the value, S&P value over the market itself. It is turning around from a more than one standard deviation low. So we're above its 10-week, above its 40-week moving average. You're also looking at, I wouldn't be going for high yield, Becky, because
there's a reason that it's high yield, right?
Oh, yeah. Also, I mean, utilities were trading at a 26% premium to their long-term absolute and relative PEs. So utilities, consumer staples, real estate have exhibited the glide path of a crowbar, mainly because investors are saying, okay, I don't really need to be driving into them because the Fed is on hold and I can probably find income elsewhere.
Gabriella, the financials, I think just in this past week, finally got back to the levels that they had seen in 2007, the highs that they had hit at that point. Does that tell you that there's more room to run? Does that tell you, okay, we've come a long way, we're finally back at those levels? If you're betting on it and thinking it's a 7% return, if you include the dividends and the buybacks, what does that tell you? Just the
I think you can rely on that 7%, and then as sentiment continues to improve in 2020, maybe you get a little bit of a cherry on top with capital appreciation as well.
So you don't think we're headed towards a recession in the next year or longer?
We do not over 2020. We think we've established a soft landing here and can continue growing around 2% next year in the U.S. If we want something a little bit more high octane, more exciting,
give us.
Let's do it. Let's do it. More exciting. I would be taking the opportunity to focus less on the U.S. and let's get back into emerging markets, for example, right? Stability and global growth, less of a risk around trade. That's not really, the upside there is not for the U.S., right? The U.S. equity market, the upside there is for emerging markets, especially emerging Asia. So maybe take the opportunity to right-size the U.S. and focus more on some of the laggards like EM.
Sam?
I think international looks very good. Hate to not disagree, but my feeling is if you look at price performance on a trailing 12 or 60-month relative strength, the international markets are trading at more than a standard deviation below their mean, and it's not a value trap because if you look to S&P Capital IQ consensus estimates for the international marketplace, the PE ratios on a relative basis are also trading at an extreme low. So, the feeling is if you are a believer in reversion to the mean, I think this is an opportunity.
Okay. We're going to leave the conversation there. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, Gabriella. And Sam.
All right, come here. What street is this? Right here.
No,
right here.
This is an undisclosed location. Undisclosed location.
43rd.
Where we are.
This is 43rd. It's the NASDAQ. There is, I can't believe this, a Crystal Healing Center. The next block.
Over.
I swear.
For me.
Well, yeah, for you. But I'm just telling you that you've tried it. The osteo, there is a crystal. Have you looked into this at all?
Nope. Are you saying Andrew's a gem?
Yeah, he's definitely a gem.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Sam's getting invited back.
I can't believe you don't know anything about this. People sleep under a three-pronged pyramid. That you use Becky's vitamin. What vitamins are these? You think he should?
Well, I take them. They help me, but then I'm sick, so I don't know if that actually helps.
But I was looking it up.
About all the guys, we're talking about all this homeopathic,
right? Because of your shoulder,
right?
And I
CBD gummies that they're giving.
I mentioned osteopath. You didn't even hear me, but subliminally, then you went to one.
I went to one.
Then you went to one, and he cracked you like a lobster. But you haven't seen any progress.
Well, he didn't say he would see it yet.
Give me a week.
I mean, you've done the CBD stuff. Trying that, right?
I tried that.
You got the thing you put on, right? That what the aspirator or whatever it is?
No, I don't.
That's not for a shoulder.
I don't have that.
That's not for the shoulder?
No, I'm into neti pumps. If that's what you're talking about.
Okay,
that's a separate.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're getting sick.
All you need. I've told you how many times.
What's that?
Buy a dog. Buy a dog. All your problems gone. Germs. Friendship,
Gabriella,
thank
you.
Therapy,
let's hold hands.
Therapy. The shoulder, a dog.
What does the dog have to do with the shoulder?
You just called Sam Stovall more interesting than Gabriella. So, I mean, that's where, if you want to know where you stand. All right, coming up, the future of Boeing and the 730.
I think you're interesting.
You're interesting. I just miss your. I just miss your father. As you know that, I miss Bob. But tell him I said hi.
I will.
All right.
I will.
The 737 MAX. Now the production has been halted. Big Pharma in focus. We're going to tell you why. Right after the break. It's actually on the east side, so what is that, 2 blocks? But it's a healing.
This CNBC program is sponsored by...
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land your next role with the LinkedIn app. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. And sometimes all it takes is one LinkedIn connection to land the job that's right for you. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and find the job meant for you. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista
who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Take 26.
Enjoy Taylor's Select Reserve Port, available for just £7.50, or Oyster Bay Sauvignon and many more for just £7 each.
I know it's Christmas, but you're getting overexcited again.
Our latest deal, Co-op, is what we do.
Offer subject to availability until stocks last on selected lines. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 3rd of January. Please drink responsibly.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. We have a couple of stocks to watch this morning. Pfizer says that the FDA has approved its drug Xtandi for expanded use in the treatment of hormone-sensitive prostate cancer. Pfizer says that that drug, in combination with anti-hormone therapy, reduced the risk of cancer spreading or deaths by more than 60% in men with that disease. That stock is up this morning on the news by about 1.1%. And keep an eye on shares of Eli Lilly today as well. The drug manufacturer is going to be holding a conference call at 9 a.m. Eastern time to talk about its full year 2020 outlook and issue guidance. Shares of Eli Lilly are up about 6% for the year to date. They're up another 0.5% this morning.
And some corporate news overnight to tell you about consumer foods giant Unilever warning it's going to be missing its full year revenue growth target for the year. It's blaming a slowdown in South Asia and also weakness in North America. It said a recovery will take some time. It expects the growth rate to remain at the lower end of its guided range for 2020.
And Roku shares are following the company's CFO. Steve Loudon plans to step down after he helps find a successor for himself. Loudon joined Roku in 2015 and helped oversee the transition to a public company and into some new areas like streaming. Roku shares have been on a tear, up more than 330% this year. Well, the CFO's leaving. I don't know whether there's anything to that or not. Anyway, coming up, spotting fake apps before your kids do. Apple says it goes out of its way to protect the safety and security of young users, but developers have found an interesting way around it. The founder of The Verge and the Outline.com join us to tell you what you should be looking for. We'll be right back.
Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage,
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
A new report is raising questions over the safety and legitimacy of apps in the Apple Store. Bustle Digital Group's new tech consumer site Input finding dozens of apps using official Disney characters to lure in parents and children to games that contain offensive material. Joining us right now is Josh Topolsky. Thank you. Josh Topolsky. He is the editor-in-chief of Input. He is also the co-creator of Vox Media and the co-founder of The Verge. And Josh, this is pretty concerning for anybody who has kids. We assume you see some of those safe signs like Disney characters and it's all good to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually pretty crazy. We actually did, the same writer who's my wife did a story a couple of years ago about YouTube videos where there were all these fake Peppa Pig videos. Same thing, kind of set off a bit of a storm about what YouTube was doing in terms of regulation. Now, the App Store and Apple are having the same issue, right? There are apps there that are literally labeled as Disney characters.
Are they stealing the Disney characters? So it's not only like offensive material, but they're like stealing the copyright.
So it's the IP of Disney, Vampirina or Frozen characters, like by name. It's got Nickelodeon IP, Paw Patrol, stuff like that. And then you go into the apps and they're filled with spammy ads. They're filled with all these, like, if you want to unlock this, go buy this. And some of them are really disturbing. I mean, there's one that we looked at, a Vampirina app where you pull teeth, which is just like upsetting. And it's aged. It's for 4+ in terms of the age. So
how does this stuff? I always thought of the Apple App Store as being the one place that would be really tough to get into. YouTube doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that with YouTube anybody can upload a video.
Right.
The App Store. I mean, Apple says that some human being reviews every app that goes in there. And look, the App Store has ballooned in size over the last few years. So there obviously is a lot more to moderate there. The real question is, how do you, get the stuff that's the bad content, right? The teeth pulling or the bad ads or whatever. That's one set of issues. The other issue is for the Disney and Nickelodeon stuff is like you have completely copyrighted characters that are in there that have nothing to do with their owners. So what
was Apple's response?
So Apple hasn't responded yet. I mean, I think that, look, this is a complicated issue. I think there's a lot of levels to it, right? If it were just copyright infringement, that's one level. If it were just bad content, that's another level. If it were just, hey, this stuff isn't appropriate for 4-year-olds, maybe it's okay for 8-year-olds, that's a different level. So I think that, what I've heard from people that I know that are at the company is that there's a lot of conversation going on right now. They're trying to figure out the right way to solve the problem. We haven't heard an official word from them. I expect that at some point they're going to have an official position on this and a reaction to it, because you can't leave the stuff up in the store.
Can I ask you sort of a meta-philosophical question that Apple's also dealing with in this sort of public policy issue, which is they've often said, look, we control the App Store. We run it the way we want to run it. We advantage certain apps over other apps, but we are effectively the monitor. In this case, obviously not monitoring it the way you might want them to be. But if they were to take a very aggressive stance about monitoring things, then they get the flip of all of this. Right. Because then all of the app makers start screaming and hollering that somehow this is some kind of, antitrust kabuki theater situation. Right. So what's the answer?
Well, it's funny. I mean, in the early days of the App Store, there was a whole controversy about them removing dictionary apps because they had 4-letter words in them. I mean, Apple wasn't even sure if they wanted swear words in the App Store in the early days. The answer is, if you say there's people looking at it, there has to be people looking at it.
Right, and you think that's not the case here? Or you think it's actually slipping in?
I mean, they might be. Look, there's sometimes. I mean, sometimes they
must be looking at it somehow, because you hear these horror stories from other people who are developing apps who bring them to the App Store and then they get shot down.
That's exactly right. So sometimes they, Jessica Lessian from The Information
just wrote that piece.
Just had this huge piece about how they scrutinized her app, they scrutinized the color of the fonts and the way that they price things. So clearly, in a lot of cases, they are looking at every part of the app.
Some back door that some of these are sliding.
I mean, it is going through some gate. The question is, who's looking? How hard are they looking? Do they have the right amount of people to look at everything?
It concerns me as a parent because I've given my kids kind of free rein to the App Store because I figure it's being policed more closely. That raises issues.
Well, that's the expectation. I mean, I think what the article points out, we expect companies like Disney or Nickelodeon,
that they will have vetted this stuff.
And
it's
Apple,
going to be okay.
right.
I'm not going to dig through and look at everything going through the app if I think that's what it is.
And Apple standards have been insanely high.
Yeah.
So they actually are reliable in almost every case, which is why this is so surprising. What was shocking about it is, wait a second, this is Apple. How does this happen? And I think it's a problem that everybody's dealing with. I mean, you see these stories about Google and Facebook right now. Moderation is a problem for everybody right now.
Do you think that there will be regulation that steps in to do this, or do you think the companies will step up to the bar themselves?
I think the danger for a company like Apple or anybody else is if you don't do it right, eventually somebody's going to make enough noise that you start talking about regulation, right? I mean, nobody's really said, hey, we're going to go and we want to regulate what's in the App Store. There have been antitrust questions. There are questions about monopoly. I think, but right now what Apple needs to do is figure out what their strategy is to solve the problem on their own.
I'm curious, philosophically, where you stand. Do you believe that the App Store should be fundamentally open? Do you believe it should be closed and monitored? Do you think there should be multiple opportunities for other app stores, meaning, some Spotify's of the world and others would say there should be almost a separate app store that should be available, and there should be competition in the app store marketplace.
Yeah, I'm for the more of an open market, more of a free market concept.
Okay, but then you'd have a wild west of these things.
Well, you could have, but then Apple could say, listen, in our store, look, you go in the store, you can say, this is what we want in our store. This is the official Apple store. Someone else would say, hey, we're going to put whatever we want in our store over here. If you want to download that on your phone and get access to these apps, then you're kind of like, play at your own risk. But I think what Google's done actually works. I mean, they have a fairly open space for people to go and put stuff in the Play Store, and they have problems like this too, but they deal with it. They have people looking at it.
Are they better than Apple in this regard?
I mean, they're more open. It's a different strategy. You can put a different app store on an Android phone. Samsung has its own app store. Right. It's totally separate from what Google does. I like the idea that more people can get their apps onto a device. You own the device. You should be able to put what you want on it. I think Apple has every right to police what they put in their app store. The question is, how good are they at policing it? And if you trust them, then you're probably going to more likely to use their app store than somebody else's.
Josh, thank you for coming in. Something to think about for sure.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Happy holidays. Meantime, a lot more on Squawk coming up. The impeachment impact, what investors need to know and might want to take away from this week's vote, all coming up. Plus, Boeing's executive decision to halt the production of the 737 MAX could have ripple effects across industry. What does it mean for the executive team at that company? We'll talk about it straight away, and then later, key economic data set to hit the wires. We will get you housing starts data and discuss the state of the real estate market when Squawk returns.
When I lost my sight.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
At Lidl, we're big on getting in the Christmas spirit. With our award-winning 8-year-old Queen Margot blended Scotch whisky for just $12.99. And our award-winning range of Hortus Artisan gins and gin liqueurs from only $9.99. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes an eye.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
As we wave goodbye to the 2010s, TuneIn is remembering some of the decade's biggest news stories.
In 2011, the Arab Spring sparks anti-government protests across the Middle East and Northern Africa. In 2016, the United Kingdom votes to leave the European Union, forcing the ongoing Brexit crisis. And in 2019, Hong Kong erupts in 6 months of pro-democracy protest against mainland China.
Search news on TuneIn to be there when the next big story breaks.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
The House Rules Committee expected to meet this morning to consider the articles of impeachment. Ilan Mui joins us now with more. Good morning.
Well, Joe, that meeting will begin at 11 a.m. and it'll set the parameters for what the debate on the House floor will look like. We are expecting that meeting to take up most of the day, which means that the final and historic vote on impeachment will not happen until tomorrow. Now, we still don't have an exact time for that vote, but we do know that the outcome has been pretty much preordained. President Trump is set to become the third president to be impeached by the House. So here on Capitol Hill, a lot of the conversation has already shifted to what's going to happen in the Senate. Democrat Chuck Schumer is now demanding that senators be able to hear from key witnesses from the White House during a trial.
To conduct a trial without the facts is saying we're afraid. We have something to hide. To conduct a trial without relevant witnesses who haven't been heard from, to just rehash the evidence presented in the House just doesn't make any sense.
So as a reminder, you will need 51 senators to agree on the rules for any trial. And that means that moderate Republicans like Mitt Romney of Utah could have a big say in how this all goes down.
I'm going to be talking to colleagues, listening to the leadership, and giving it a great deal of thought. And I'm not at a point right now where I've been able to take in that information.
Guys, we are expecting to hear from both Republican and Democratic leadership in the Senate later on this afternoon. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has signaled that he might have some more details for us then. Back over to you.
All right, Ilan, thanks. Joining us now to talk past impeachments, what past impeachments have meant for markets and how it can impact them today. Paul Hickey, co-founder of Bespoke Investment Group. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
I was interesting looking at some of your notes. Hard to believe that the partisan divide actually is not at a record. It was higher during Bush too, at 45 points, 45 percentage points. I think a lot of people on the left have forgotten how much they hated W. They've totally recalibrated their hate for Trump. This is it's not a quantitative difference. It's actually relative. It's qualitatively different. they even like W now. They think, he was harmless.
Michelle Obama and Bush are friends.
Right, I know. Ellen goes to football games with him. I know, it's really...
And yet Michelle Obama has to defend the fact that she's friends with him. I mean, it's just a lot of...
Ellen had to defend.
It just shows how divided the whole thing is right now.
So we were talking about it earlier. This is the most tame constitutional crisis I've ever seen, at least in terms of the markets.
The futures Dow's down 7 points.
Exactly, and it's up at its 16th new high as of yesterday. Why?
Well, I think, to the words of James Carville, it's the economy, stupid. We look in 74 when Nixon was impeached, from Watergate till the time he resigned, the S&P was down 25%, dropped another 25% after he resigned. But the U.S. economy was in tatters then. Oil was spiking and we had inflation rampant. So I think, and then you go to the late 90s with Clinton, who, you look at the politicians, a lot of them are still there today, who was on one side of the aisle back then, is on the other side now, and vice versa. The economy was doing very well, and the market was up 28% from the time the Lewinsky affair broke till the time Clinton was acquitted, and that included the long-term capital.
So there's people that say that the person sitting in the Oval Office has very little to do overall with the economy. You'd either have to think that, or you'd have to think that Trump really isn't getting that, President Trump is not getting that wounded at this point, because we're not that far from a Sanders or a Warren or a Biden presidency if that's going to happen. And what, the economy is going to be fine under a Sanders or under a Warren?
Well, no. So you look at the poll numbers. From the day Warren's poll numbers peaked was in early October. From there, the S&P has been going a lot higher. Healthcare has been straight higher since Warren's numbers peaked. If you do a chart of it, if you inverse Warren's numbers to the healthcare sector, they're right on top of each other. So then now it looks
more like Biden is what you're saying, and Biden would be okay for the economy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think he would be more tolerable than a Warren or a Sanders. But at the same time, I think at this point, if Trump gets through all of this, which it's looking likely he will, then he wins. The chances of him being
wins what? He can win in 2020 even with all these horrible things?
Because, look, the
wacky deplorables?
No. What's happening here? Look, on just straight economy, straight economic numbers, nobody, no matter what side you're on, are going to dispute that things are good. This is a referendum on his character, which is a different
Not just that, though. No, Andrew, it's really not. Because if you, then you must take everything that the Democrats are saying with a grain of salt in terms of being just a really huge threat to democracy and to the Constitution and an abuse of power.
But that goes to character.
Well, it doesn't just go to character.
It affects, for better or worse,
but it affects all of us.
Most Americans don't seem to be interested in character. They seem to be interested in the economy.
You're making it way too simplistic. If he is putting the national security of the United States at risk, the way Schumer and the left are talking about it, then it's not just character anymore. This is a really important thing. And I can't believe you think there's going to be a landslide. Then you must think most Americans are pretty like sociopaths if they don't care what this guy is doing.
I would argue that it's very short-term thinking. I do think that's true.
To
the extent that you think that
you're not looking down at the American public for electing this guy.
Unfortunately, I'm not making a comment on the election. What I'm making a comment on is that people aren't looking or seeming to look past character issues and other things.
I'm not staying out of this one.
In favor of the economy. In favor of the economy.
Those 63 million are pretty deplorable. I think if you just want to really be honest, they're pretty deplorable.
There's not a commentary on
they're pretty
for who.
What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think the average American when they vote is going to look at how their standing is doing. Are they doing better or worse? And Trump has a lot of character flaws that you can bring out. But at the same time, we're in such a transparent environment right now. I mean, are we saying that every politician before him was an angel? I mean, if you look back...
That's true, too. But, I look at the way mainstream media...
on that front, life is relative.
Hold on, but Andrew, look at the way mainstream media is characterizing the Republicans that won't throw Trump under the bus.
Well, that's true, too.
These people are headed down this greasy chute to live the rest of their days with Satan. The Republicans that are not abandoning Trump, according to the mainstream media. They They have no backbone. They have no conscience. And they're enabling this guy to, right? Isn't that what you see? So,
I see it, but I'll say
then
the one thing that I've always found troubling about all of this from the beginning, irrespective of what you think's happening in Ukraine or anywhere else, is that the Republicans historically, at least during the Trump administration, have been unwilling to criticize the president virtually at any level for all of these things which are obvious character-related issues.
The characteristics are very obvious to Andrew.
It's obvious to anybody who's like half sentient.
So with the characteristics of every previous president we've had, almost, except for Jimmy Carter, maybe.
All you have to do is look at Bill Clinton and the impeachment that he faced, too.
JFK, OBJ, I can go back. Grant was in a bag, the entire presidency. Anyway, who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Grant and his wife.
Anyway, Paul, so what I really don't understand, number one...
It's true, it's right up here.
...is that we hear about all this stuff and then people acknowledge that there could be a big win in 2020, which there's a disconnect there. And is that why the market keeps going up? Because it thinks Trump is going to be reelected?
Well, I think...
No, because it thinks Elizabeth Warren is less likely.
I think Biden would be okay.
Well,
Look, I think you have a situation where you have, more tolerable candidate most likely getting in, but you also have right now, look at the Fed. The Fed is basically came out in October and said they're not cutting rates, and then they came out last week and said, we're serious, we're really not cutting rates anytime soon. And I think that is being coincided with also a strong
that'll help the president.
And that'll help the president, and the Fed usually stays out of the picture, so if they don't do any moves in the first half of the year, it would be hard for them to make a move in the second half of the year, even if the economy is doing well.
Can we at least acknowledge that these are crazy times that we're in right now?
Yes.
Crazy times, but this has been the most tranquil decade in U.S. market history. We've never had less volatility in a decade than we have this decade.
It just shows you the kind of people that are...
Think of the last decade where we were coming from.
Right.
That's why.
The people controlling the purse strings. You got to hope that after the plane crash, there's not another plane crash, right?
Yes.
We were coming from the depths. You got to remember that, too.
No, it came after the second worst decade in U.S. history.
The S&P 500 was at 666.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
When we come back, we have more of this morning's market movers. And then Boeing's reputation and stock price have been battered. What the decision to halt production of the 737 MAX means for executives and investors is straight ahead.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You'll get interviews, original content, and behind-the-scenes access. Look for us on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to Squawk Pod today.
Given falling interest rates and rising market uncertainty.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year? I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12th 19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
On the goal line, scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Greta Gerwig on bringing Louisa May Alcott's novel Little Women to the big screen.
Women have all kinds of practice imagining themselves as men, and men have very little practice imagining themselves as women.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. Take a look at futures right now. Show you where things look like they are headed about 2 hours before the market open right now. Dow off about, call it 6 points. NASDAQ looking to open higher, close to 11 points higher. And the S&P 500 looking to open about 3 points higher.
Time right now for a look at this morning's market movers. Dom Chu is here. He's got much more on what we're watching today. What's up, Dom?
All right, so Becky, good morning to you and the gang. Let's kick things off with shares of Dow component Johnson & Johnson. The pharma and consumer products giant is up about 1.5% at this point now, roughly 5,000 shares of pre-market volume, helped along by an upgrade over analysts at Morgan Stanley to an overweight rating with a $170 price target that's up from $145. They think that more clarity about regulatory prospects, better drug pricing trends in the industry, and a more balanced product portfolio will help drive multiple expansion there. That's helping those shares higher by about 1.2%. Next up, we got shares of Micron, which are up about 1.5%, roughly 75,000 shares of pre-market volume. The computer chip maker is getting upgraded by analysts over at Wedbush to an outperform from a prior neutral rating. The target price also gets up to $65 from $44. They like better pricing trends in key memory chip products and more demand for those products over the course of the year 2020. So those shares up about 1.5%. And then we'll end on shares of Groupon, which are down over 2% on roughly 8,000 shares of pre-market volume, dragged down by a downgrade over at analysts at Goldman Sachs to a sell rating from a prior neutral. The target goes to $2.40. They cited, among other things, deteriorating trends and execution risks in the North American market and broader macroeconomic challenges additionally to those as well. So those shares of 2.25%, Joe. I'll send things back over to you.
All right, Dom, thanks. Coming up, Boeing's announcement to shut down production of the 737 MAX could have a broader effect on the economy. And with the company unable to win approval from regulators to let the plane fly again, it's one of the most consequential decisions C-level executives have made. We will discuss that decision after the break. Then later, an exclusive look at how the 50,000 Amazon-branded vans are a key part of the company's shift to free next-day shipping for the first time this holiday season. Squawk Box coming right back.
What choices will the Corvin Wine Preservation System unlock?
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land your next role with the LinkedIn app. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. And sometimes all it takes is one LinkedIn connection to land the job that's right for you. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and find the job meant for you. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
Ho, ho, ho! Make my job easier this year with a subscription to TuneIn Premium, featuring the world's largest selection of music, news, podcasts, and sports. It's a gift they'll enjoy every day, all year long. Ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays! Search Premium to upgrade today. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown. touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Boeing is going to halt the production of the 737 MAX, but no jobs are going to be lost in the process. Phil LeBeau joins us now to tell us how that's going to work, Phil.
It'll be a rocky first quarter, that's for sure, but no layoffs are planned. Here's what's likely to happen. I hear this question already in the last 12 hours, people saying, well, how long are we going to see the shutdown last in production? Most believe it's going to last for most of the first quarter. Again, that's an estimate. Boeing is leaving it open-ended. They're not giving any clarity there. No layoffs are planned, which helps lessen the blow, if you will, for the people who are out in Renton, Washington. The real focus is on the 400 or so 737 MAXs that are built but not yet delivered. They're parked in Renton. They're parked at Moses Lake east of Seattle, down in San Antonio. They're parked all over the place. They want to start clearing this out, and as they clear those out, expect those deliveries likely to start maybe in late February, early March. Again, that's an estimate. It depends on what happens with the FAA. So if you are game planning this, and this is strictly based on conversations with people at Boeing, people at the FAA, people with the airlines, here's what we're expecting. You are likely to see certification early to mid-February. That's if everything goes as planned. And again, that is not written in stone. MAX deliveries might resume by mid to late February. MAX production then resumes mid to late March. They're not just going to fire it up right away, and it'll be a gradual increase. Take a look at shares of Boeing. On pace, at least earlier today, pre-market, they were on pace to open lower than they were a year ago. So go negative for all of 2019. Whether or not it stays there remains to be seen. Also want to show you shares of Southwest. Southwest saying earlier today it has pulled the MAX from its schedule through April 13th. That was expected. We'll likely hear from United in the next couple of days as it joins American and Southwest in terms of pulling the MAX from its schedule. That's basically what we're expecting when it comes to the MAX.
Phil, stay with us. Thanks for joining the table. For more on the challenges ahead for Boeing, I want to welcome crisis management expert Eric Desenhall. He's the CEO of Desenhall Resources, and Dennis Tazier. He is the captain of the 737 for American Airlines, also the spokesman for the Allied Pilots Association, the union for 15,000 professional pilots who fly for American Airlines. Eric and Dennis, thank you for joining us. Dennis, this is your world. You live in it. What's your timeline for when these planes get back in the air?
Well, long ago, we put the calendars in a drawer and took our watches off. We're going to stand with Administrator Dixon and let this process run through. And the process right now, I think, is being slightly overlooked. The MCAS software has been addressed. We're still looking at that, flight control computers. But right now, the FAA is deeply involved in testing the human factors of it, making sure that the pilots, how they react to these newly designed systems, and then looking at checklists. So there's a lot more to go in this.
When you say a lot more to go, it seems, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you suggesting that the timeline that Phil even just talked about is too aggressive?
Well, we've learned to just ignore guides that go to the timeline and just focus on the process. So it's got to be done right, and it's got to involve pilots.
For the viewers and especially investors out there trying to figure this out, what are the component parts, the permutations with which you still think things need to get addressed and figured out?
Well, just last week, the FAA concluded what is called a 1302, and that's taking line pilots in and seeing how they react to this newly designed system. Then we'll go to a joint, what is called a JOAB, a joint group that will review the training and test it with pilots. Then that'll be forwarded to the FAA, will be internally to the what is called an FSB, and then they will make a recommendation for pilot training. All of these steps are happening, have yet to happen. Some of them just happened last week. So there's still miles to go, but again, we're not going to let the tick of the clock guide this. We're just focused on making sure it's done right and that the pilots are ready.
Hey, Phil, you just listening to that. Yeah. And I'm looking at the screen here. It says early recertification, early mid-February. If you have to bring in pilot, do all the things that he just talked about.
Well, they've already done the 1302 that Dennis was talking about. There's a public comment period for a couple of these steps here. One is going to be for 30 days that they're in the midst of on one of those, and another one's for 15 days. Is it possible by mid-February? Yeah, it's possible, but and again, that's why we put that up there. Right. That's just the best estimate that people have right now. And nobody is comfortable saying that's certain.
By the way, the airlines have been better about estimating this than Boeing has been. They've been moving it back on their schedule before and more
well, yes. Remember, it takes the airlines anywhere from 45 to 60 days to comfortably start planning ahead because of the pilot schedules, et cetera.
Right. Hey, Eric, you've long talked, and we've had this conversation on the air about the credibility of CEOs and what you do in the midst of one of these things, and whether consistency and trying to keep the management team in the seat actually makes more sense, given some of the complicated nature of just trying to get this thing off the ground versus the credibility issue, and whether you think it matters to have that, or whether you think they need more credibility either with the public or with regulators, et cetera. Have you changed your view at all about where things are now?
Well, a little bit. I mean, crisis management is an improvisational game. You try different things to see if it will knock the crisis into remission. So far, nothing has worked. So that leaves you with two options. One is a bet the company operational decision, and that's what we've seen as of last night to suspend production. The other is a management shakeup. And the problem with the management shakeup, it is one of those things that, and no offense, the news media and observers tend to think is an answer, but I tend to be skeptical that it is just because people think it's the answer that it is an actual answer. A head rolling contest, unless you are dealing with provable negligence at the top, is not always as constructive. I think one of the challenges here from a total communications perspective is complexity in terms of a cause is not your friend. We're hearing it's the MCAS system. We're hearing it may be an interaction between human beings and the MCAS system. We're hearing about the role of regulators. As a general consumer, none of that is comforting, even though life, we understand, is complex.
Okay, well, let me ask Dennis then, straight up and down, right here, right now. Do you support, and does Dennis Muhlenberg, the CEO of the company, have credibility with you and your group of pilots?
Well, obviously there's been a crushing of the trust relationship, but we're going to focus on rebuilding that with facts and not quippy slogans. We want to see the actions. And right now, Administrator Dixon, there's Becky had mentioned there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new captain in the cockpit. And we know how he's reacting to people pushing him. It's what we do and what I do in the cockpit when my crew is being pushed. It's to reaffirm that this needs to be done together and done on the basis of
safety. And you feel comfortable
safety.
with all of it? The reason I'm asking is because clearly investors yesterday, after the decision, I spoke to a number of them, or enough of them, I should say, who suggested, look, we've been waiting and waiting. We've been given deadlines that they've missed. They haven't reached. They told us one thing, something else has happened, and the question is now, I think, being asked in a way perhaps differently than it was being asked before.
Well, clearly, these guides that just keep falling through it, it's just like, in the cockpit, it's just like the market. We don't like uncertainty, and we tend to ignore these false deadlines. We're no matter who's in charge in the cockpit, because of what we do and the serious consequences of it, we must have full disclosure, all the facts, and we'll let that guide us.
Eric, what would you do right now? If Dennis is watching, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that the inside game is more important than the outside game. And the inside game is defined by how the FAA and how the pilots and how the government reacts. And that views from the cheap seats in terms of head rolling are not the answer. Focus on the inside game. This is first, and the solution to this crisis is getting the planes in the air without incident. It is not pleasing the mass consumer right now.
Okay, Eric Desmond. Dennis, thank you. Phil, thanks for hanging out.
Good to be here.
Great to see you.
Jeans.
And I just got in the covered wagon in Chicago yesterday, started coming here. I had to get here for you.
You know you were going to do a stand. People are jealous. They say, "Wow, Phil has got some juice at that place." You're wearing jeans.
You're wearing yoga pants. He is. Look at him. They're Lululemons.
They're ABC pants.
People in glass houses.
They're ABC pants. Okay.
All right. Phil, we're glad to see you. Thanks for making it out here. Yeah. When we come back, what matters more to investors, impeachment or trade? Tariff worries have dominated sentiment, but this week's impeachment vote can still rattle investors. We're going to talk to market uncertainty, talk about what's happening there. We'll do that next. And then later, Amazon announcing that it will no longer allow third-party sellers to use FedEx Ground for Prime deliveries, at least between now and the holidays. We'll have more on the company's e-commerce push and what it could mean for the stock. Squawk Box will be right back.
I'm Tom Steyer, and I approve this message.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the Van Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Back to throw, fires right on the slant. Caught, touchdown.
He leaps and he surges in, touchdown.
This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the lights shine bright on the Las Vegas Bowl. Washington Huskies head coach Chris Peterson will coach his final game before retiring as he takes on his former school, the Boise State Broncos.
Down to the 5, he leaps for the end zone, and he is in.
To listen to this and every bowl game, just search college football today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
A shutdown with global consequences, how Boeing's halt of the 737 MAX production could ripple through the worldwide economy.
What the vote on the impeachment of President Trump means for your investments. We're going to dig into the potential market impact.
And the holiday shipping battle heats up. We go inside Amazon's next-day delivery operation as the final hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the